All right. This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver, and the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of council for Monday, July 10th at 7 o'clock. To start the meeting off in a good way, I've asked Councillor Back to read our land acknowledgement.
Early on the screen.
Oh, we've got it in the council package on page 3.
I just don't have it open. Can we put it on the screen?
You don't have it on the slide.
I'm just having a computer issue.
You know what? That's okay. I can. I'm happy to take care of it today, Councillor.
Thank you. My apologies.
There you
I'm
go.
having some technical issues as well. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you very much, Councillor Back. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions in the agenda as presented? Hearing none, will someone please move adoption of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Forbes, second by Councillor Ma. I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries and the agenda is approved. Council, we have several sets of minutes, I believe 3 sets of minutes that have been circulated with the package. Are there any errors or omissions from those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, will somebody please move adoption of the 3 sets of meeting minutes that are attached in the package? Moved by Councillor Forbes, second by Councillor Back. Call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at the front end of every regular meeting of council, we reserve a period of time for up to 30 minutes for members of the public to raise matters of import to them. There is an opportunity for people who are speaking to agenda items to speak first. We do have a rather full sign-up of people who have signed up ahead of time, and so we'll do our best to work through that. But if people keep their comments brief, it won't mean that the public input period is shorter. It'll just mean that more people may get an opportunity to speak. And so we would encourage you to keep your comments brief wherever possible. The other thing I'd like to add at the beginning of the meeting is that this meeting is being held in a hybrid fashion, which means all members of the council, the public, and the staff can participate in this meeting in a, either in person or participating through the Zoom function that we have established for the meeting. Obviously, for tonight's meeting, all 7 members of council are here in person to consider these items. So at this point, I'm going to move on to the public input period. As I said at the beginning, that the clerk's office has been open receiving people signups for those discussion points. I have 7 members of the public who have expressed an interest to speak to agenda items, and then I have 2 additional people who are speaking to non-agenda items. I also have 1 additional person speaking at an item. And so that person is not forgotten when we get to the list. They're going to come up at the time of the item. So the first speaker that I have tonight is Susan Scott, followed by Ben Schlager. And Susan Scott, I understood, was joining us in person. Welcome. Come on up. If you sit at the desk up here, we'll make sure you have a microphone. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, thank you. I'm here to express my full support of the item number, I think it's 8.4 at 382 Seashell Lane. It's a just for a coach house, and I'm the architect for the coach house and the main house on the property. We've designed the house to be in consistent in form, scale, and materiality with the main house and the garage. All these 3 structures are focused towards the ocean views by maintaining a very low ridge at the street side that rises gently towards the ocean. This enhances the interior feel of the house, but also reduces the overall impact of the new structures on the adjacent properties. We initially designed this coach house over a year ago, and since then we've reworked the design several times in response to neighbors' concerns. We've reduced the overall height significantly, and it's now just 3.5 feet lower than the maximum height on the street side. We've also lowered the finished floor elevation, and these 2 combined minimize the impact of the coach house on the neighboring properties and enhances their views. We'd also like to point out that by reducing the height of the house and lowering the finished floor, this also compromises the views from within the coach house and lowers their appreciation of that opportunity. The covenant in this area restricts 28 properties to one residential dwelling. However, 2 coach houses have also been already approved and constructed within the last 4 years with no opposition. 22 of these properties are also restricted to 1 story by the covenant. However, at least 6 houses within this covenant restriction area exceed that 1-story height, and that includes one on Seashell Lane. A 2-story structure was initially contemplated when we designed the main house, but ultimately a single-story house was designed in order to reduce the impact on the neighbors. Single-story design forces the allowable area and FAR onto 1 floor, impacting the site coverage and the amount of area available for siting, which forces the courthouse closer to the road. And those two of the variances are a direct result of that. We're also improving the situation with the driveway. There's the initial house had a driveway access off of Gulf Drive, and there'll no longer be an access there. It will also be fully landscaped by a professional landscaper and beautiful views. 8 seconds. We deal with this a lot, and our client is, from our opinion, incredibly generous with his efforts to improve the neighboring condition.
Thank you very much for your comments, Susan Scott. The next speaker I have is Ben Slager, followed by Claudia Cornwall, and I believe Ben is joining us virtually.
Yes.
Welcome. I'd love for you to speak directly into your microphone. It's coming in rather quiet. Maybe we can the clerks adjust that at all?
We need to hear. Okay.
Can you just say your name?
It's Ben Slager. Can you hear me? Ben
just try
Slager.
That's a little bit better. I'll just have you speak in a loud voice. I'd really appreciate it. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Little and the district. Just 1 second. I'll see if I can deal with that background noise. 1 second. Sorry. Can we stop that noise? Is there a chance? Okay. Sorry. This is part of the nature of where I am and why I can't be there in person. I'm actually up the Sunshine Coast on that trip planned several months ago, and I have submitted a written objection, but wanted to join personally as well the best I can. So I'm the joint owner of 386 Beachview Drive, which is the house arguably most affected by the laneway home. And I think I'd like to focus on a few concerns. You'll see my written submissions. But I think, hopefully the council is aware of the unique nature of this little corridor. So Seashell Lane, which is described, has the name of a lane, is actually a street and not a lane. It's primary access for a number of homes along the water. So this is actually like getting a laneway home on a regular street. The other issue is that there's a public ocean access just down from Little Cates Park, which is probably the most used and the busiest public ocean access. And so you'll see in Exhibit B of my written objections that cars are coming in and out. They're going the wrong way on Seashell Lane. There's people walking up and down Dollar Lane. So it's very, very active, especially on long weekends. You'll often have 100, 150 people there on a long weekend day. So you have, by bringing the second abode closer to the road, as Susan had mentioned, you're actually obstructing sight lines and you're creating more congestion in that area. Of course, there's parking issues that always have been in Little Cates, and those are a concern, but the safety is a significant one, and the precedent it sets. I understand restrictive covenants are not, they're given some level of respect. They're not enforced by the district. As for the other laneway houses, my understanding is that they were actually built on lanes, not on street side. And then of course for us in Beachview, 386 Beachview, there is definitely a material obstruction of our view. And, we haven't had an assessment done, but I can only imagine it would be, $200,000 or $300,000 of impairment to the value of our home, which we bought a couple of years ago. So we are concerned. We do appreciate the efforts that the owners of the new Seashell property have gone to minimize some of this. But, when I looked at Graham's assessment, his recommendation, the basis seemed to be that it's going to provide more housing. But this is essentially a 460 square foot little abode, and it's not going to house a family. So I don't think it actually addresses the housing problem. And as I say, it's not a laneway home. It's actually being built on a street. So those are my primary concerns. Again, thank you, everyone, and apologies for the sound constraints, but
Nope.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for your comments, Ben Slager. And no, I think we were able to hear your comments through your presentation. Okay, the next speaker I have is Claudia Cornwall, followed by Andy Reichert. Claudia Cornwall, that was going to be joining us online. Okay. Okay, Claudia
Hello,
Cornwall, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And okay, I guess there's the video. Probably you should be seeing me.
I can't see you at this point. Maybe it's queuing up, but I can definitely hear you. So
Okay, well, that's
welcome.
the important part. So my name is Claudia Cornwall. I live at 1048 Canyon Boulevard in North Vancouver. And thank you, Mayor Little and Council, for letting me speak. I'm speaking, asking you to move to level 4 on the zero carbon step code. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm speaking to you from my summer place near 100 Mile House in the Caribou on the traditional lands of the Canham Lake First Nations. In 2017, our cabin was within 1 kilometer of the fires. And this year, my son and daughter-in-law who live in Smithers are 3 kilometers from the fires. Climate change is affecting more and more people. This year is the worst fire season on record in Canada. I'm asking you to move to level 4 on the zero carbon step code. We need to move quickly on reducing emissions. In BC in 2021, over 600 people died due to the climate change caused heat dome. New research just reported on in the Globe and Mail today concludes that 61,000 people died due to heat related causes in Europe last summer. Every carbon dioxide molecule we put into the atmosphere now is another nail in the coffin. It will contribute to extreme weather and death, both here and around the world. Those molecules mean that the lives of our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be much more difficult than our own have been. Gas stoves in our homes contribute to climate change-related weather disasters. They contribute to ill health, not just in the future, but right now. Children growing up in homes with gas stoves are at a higher risk of asthma and other respiratory diseases. That's why I think we should move to the step 4 to prevent gas hookups in new construction. My husband and I recently built a passive net zero energy house. That meant I had to give up my gas stove, of which I was pretty fond. I am an enthusiastic cook and love to make dishes from scratch. I was worried about the switch from, my notes here have disappeared on me. I was worried about the switch from gas to induction, but I thought that it worked really well. Actually, the induction oven is just as fast, in some cases faster, than the old gas stove. And you can make an omelet on an induction cooktop that is just as delicious as one cooked by gas. And the cooktop is much easier to clean. There really isn't any reason to stick with a technology that is so dangerous for human beings and all the other creatures on our planet. That is especially new construction. So with those words, I conclude, and thank you again for listening.
Thank you very much for your comments, Claudia Cornwall. The next speaker I have is Andy Reichert, followed by Sandra Harbridge. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I and my wife live at 374 Beachview Drive, and we've been there for 34 years. So we've seen a lot of things that have happened over that time period. One of the concerns I have is that although the district doesn't look at covenants on properties, we do, and we have over the years. We have prevented 2 homes from building 2-story houses on Seashell Lane over that time period. And without our objections, those would have gone through. It didn't come to city council or district council, but through other methods, we were able to prevent that from happening. This situation is no different. There's 2 houses currently being built on Seashell Lane. And it's interesting that both owners of those properties knew at the time when they bought those homes that there was a covenant on the property that said, number 1, no 2-story homes and no second dwellings. And they bought the houses. It's also interesting to note that both of these houses are 1-story. They didn't attempt to build a 2-story home. They built 1-story, which was in agreement with what the covenant said. 374 Seashell Lane attempted to build a 2-story garage. They took that to the Board of Variance, and that was turned down basically because of the covenant that was on the property. Your Board of Variance at that time was shocked that that covenant was there and that they weren't told about it, and that application was denied. The applicant on this laneway home is now trying to get approved a smaller item than what the 2-story house would be. And I think that it's a mistake for this council to allow that to go ahead. Every house on Seashell Lane or on Beachview that borders Seashell Lane will now be able to build a laneway home. During busy times of the year, from Dollar Road to Kate's Road, Beachview, Gulf Drive are completely packed with vehicles. There's only 8 cars or 9 cars that can park along Seashell Lane because one side of it is no parking. So I think that in what I've read in your report that was provided by Graham, your development planner, doesn't cover the whole scenario. I think what should be done, he's giving you 2 options, approve it or say no. I think you need to postpone it. First off, I think you need to have a proper impact report done on this area, on the parking, on the development, and what impact all these houses would have on this area. And I urge City Council to go down to this site on a weekend, anytime, come on our decks and see what this house has done to our views and everybody else on the street. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Andy Reichert. The next speaker I have is Sandra Harbage, followed by Jamie Cormack. And I believe they're both in person. So there you go. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and fellow councillors. My name is Sandra Harbage, and I live at 358 Beachview Drive. I feel I will be quite impacted by having a laneway home built. Not only are we struggling every day for parking, especially now when the park is completely full of cars and people. I myself have spent 8 hours trying to get my vehicle parked because people are parking. As soon as you move, someone's in your spot, basically. I think this is going to be a big mistake to let it go through. I myself have been there for 31 years, and I feel that I wasn't allowed a deck on my upper level because I had maximized the square footage of house and lot. And I'm concerned of how much house and lot they will have if they do a laneway home, because that would have a further impact on what people can do in that area. And if that happens, then we'll all be in the situation where none of us will be able to park or move. So I believe it would be a mistake to go ahead with it. And needless to say, I'm sure the house will be beautiful. They did a lovely job, but they also raised the house considerably. I believe when they had to put a wall in and bring the level of the house up because of the water conditions. So we did lose some of the view because the land came higher and the house became higher as well. So that impacts the people that have houses that are only 1 story. They have greatly decreased in value. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Sandra Harbich. Next speaker I have is Jamie Cormack, followed by Debbie Reichert. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking council for letting me speak tonight, and I'm speaking on 382 Seashell Lane. I guess tonight is sensitive, and it's tough to talk about because I'm having disagreement with some neighbors and don't have full alignment, and that's tough because I have lived at this address for 9 years and been part of the community for 15. And I truly do believe that building this coach home is the future. We have a density problem here in North Shore. We have the infrastructure and the amazing infrastructure. We don't have the housing to support it. You know, I have a local business here in Deep Cove, retail business, handful of employees, younger, average age of 23. Majority can only stay on board at our store for less than a year. They move up from parents' house, have to commute downtown to other places. It's a long drive back to the shore. It's hard to find rental houses and affordable ones at that. I think key to that, downtown Vancouver, I have staff about 250. Age is quite a bit different. 31 is their average age there, and they're looking to settle down. They're looking to start families. They're looking to move to the North Shore to take in our mountains and our water. The key here is we just don't have the infrastructure of rental houses, of homes. We don't, truly have that problem and that talent. And the rental house is extremely limiting. And I think for me, the coach house gives me options. It gives me options to bring in that younger generation, gives them a small home to rent. There is parking on lot. So there's been a lot of conversations around parking. We have facilitated that need. It allows me for my elders, even my young children at the time, knowing I could move there. I mean, it gives optionality to the place. And I think it does help with our density problem. And it's a major issue. I guess I just want to thank my neighbors who have supported it. I think it is the design for the future. I think we're looking for more coach houses, more suites. Even the people that spoke tonight. I mean, there are people out there renting units with suites in-house that have elders living there. We need to look after this in the North Shore for us to have a vibrant community and continue to grow here, to continue with our, I think great support system in retail, restaurants, everything. We need staffing. We need to fix that problem. And density, it's one major issue I see here on the shore. And I'll leave it there in short. We have a long evening, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Jamie Cormack. The next speaker I have is Debbie Reichert, again, joining us here in person. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for listening to me tonight. My name is Debbie Reichert, and I'm the joint owner of 374 Beachview Drive, living behind the petitioner's property. I implore you to consider the repercussions at this coach house and the potential for the increased vehicles it will have on our neighborhood. I'm echoing a lot of Ben's same reasoning behind the reason that we would like you to consider this seriously and to not allow it to go ahead. I'm under the same understanding that this is a local road according to the district and not a lane, but the access to this coach house would be from the front of the petitioner's street, not from a typical back lane where there is much less vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Seashell Lane also provides a public access, like Ben said, and this access is right next to the proposed coach house. If the existing covenant it becomes ignored, it's going to open up a significant increase in the traffic and the congestion in such a beautiful area that I feel is the reason why the petitioner originally chose to live on the street. It's always been an out-of-the-way, quiet area in North Vancouver. They want to raise their young family in a neighborhood where it's quiet, safe, and unobstructed by heavy traffic. If this goes ahead, it'll increase traffic in this area, which could potentially cause harm to any pedestrians or young children who always have been on this road on the corner. It'll open up the door for another potential 11 properties to build coach houses. And I do agree with there's a housing problem, but we were under the impression from the very beginning from Mr. Cormack that he was building, when he came to us with the fact that he wanted to build a coach house, it was to house his mother-in-law, which is great. I think if you're going to try and increase density, open up your basement suites. Maybe we need a little bit more room there to have more legalized basement suites. So I'm respectfully requesting that you postpone the decision until after the possible traffic survey can be completed during the busy summer months and an impact study on how the possibility of more coach houses in this area is going to cause a larger problem down the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next speaker we have speaking on non-agenda items. This is Hazen Colbert, followed by Rob Webb. Hazen Colbert is joining us here in person. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Thank you, Council. I haven't been here in person since 2019. And some of the faces I actually said, who are those people? Because I haven't seen Catherine in person and I hadn't seen Herman and somebody else. Well,
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hazen Colbert, and I live on 1111 East 27th. So I've got two flags here. They're both very important to me. I don't recognize the Canadian flag. I had it up flying last week. And I've got an old school LGBTQ flag from the old days. And as I said, both of these flags they represent my identity, first as a Canadian, and equally as important as a cisgender gay man living a genuine gay life. Over the years of my life, I've learned that gender identity is a really important phrase in a world that was previously drenched in heterosexuality. Once upon a time, these words were said to me. The word gay means pedophile. They should take them all out and shoot them. And the person that said that knew that I was gay. She was my mother. My father wrote in his will, after he decided that I should get a lot less money than I am claiming in litigation against his estate, that me living as a gay man is maladjusted, deviant, and deserving of the judgment of God Almighty. These are facts. The case management judge who is dealing with this matter in Ontario, Justice Sally Gomery, and some of you might recognize that name, and I assure you the apple does not fall far from the tree, described my concerns with respect to these homophobic statements by my mother and father, and I quote, decades-old grievances. That's why I read here from a 28-page document. It's a motion that she recuse herself from the matter. Otherwise, I take her to the Canadian Judicial Council. If I can defend the 2S LGBT community by taking an Ontario Superior Court judge to the Canadian Judicial Council, I think that this council and the city of North Vancouver can get rid of those people occupying that mountain highway overpass with their signs. And I think you should do it not only because it's the right thing to do, but I also have great concerns about some stuff that I have read directed at the mayor of the city of North Vancouver, directed at Mayor Little, directed at Councillor Catherine Pope, and directed at both Jordan Back and his mother. It's despicable. And council, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Colbert. The next speaker I have is Rob Webb, also joining us here in person.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Very good. I'd first like to give my condolences to the last speaker. It sounds like a terrible thing he's going through.
We really appreciate if you get a little closer to the microphone.
Certainly,
Sitting
I guess I'll
myself do
sit
that
down.
just so it's picked up. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I'm here to introduce myself. My name's Rob Webb. I'm born and raised here in Lynn Valley, North Vancouver, 1415 East 18th Street. And I am that guy on the bridge. It's been my baby. And we are not hateful. We're not anti-LGBTQ. None of the things we're being accused of. There's gay people that come every Thursday. support us, support what we're saying, support what we're doing. I'd invite Mr. Colbert and anyone here to come down and talk to us. We are being misrepresented in our media. And that's a common refrain, not just here in Vancouver, it's across the world. There's a lot of people standing up to this SOGI agenda. SOGI agenda stands for sexual orientation and gender ideology. It was an agenda that was put forth in 2004 by the UN. And while we were under lockdown, et cetera, it was begun to really push the agenda in our schools. I've looked into it. I've talked to teachers. I know what's going on there. It's pornographic. There's many people finding out about this as a parent. If you go in to ask your principal to see the curriculum, the SOGI curriculum that they'll be teaching your child, they won't even let you see it. They don't want you to see it. They're embarrassed. Now, just to give a little bit more background on that, for 10 months, I was down there invoking my right to protest and speech, free speech, without incident. There was no accidents, there was no issues. We had cops regularly stopping by to say hello, and many of them supported what we're doing. And it was only until a friend of mine brought in a banner about the anti-SOGI stuff. So I think it said gender ideology equals child sex grooming. I didn't know that much about it, but by the next day, I certainly did. I decided I'd best look into this because it's very much triggered almost anybody in authority in our community. So, you know, we got called every name in the book, and it's not that way. You know, there's been some proper journalistic pieces done that explain it, and I would invite any of you here to come down and see us. We are going to continue. I filed a motion to quash their injunction, and we have a 1-year anniversary this Thursday. There'll be about 100 of us there. Come and see us. You too, sir.
All right. We've actually probably got time for one more speaker. I don't know if anybody else would like to speak, either virtually raise your hand or here in the audience. I don't see anyone, so at this point, I'm going to move on with this evening's agenda. At the item, signed up at the item, so she'll be, the way the option was to speak at the front end of the meeting or when the item comes up for discussion at 8.9. Did I misunderstand that? We still have time. If you'd prefer to speak now rather than at the item, that's okay. Okay, that's totally fine. We can make that adjustment. We can arrange that. Are they on the desktop? Do we know?
Yes, they are.
Okay. They should be on the desktop.
Okay.
And if you give them a double click, then it
Could
should
it
look
be
familiar.
one that says Catherine Pope? No, that's me. Ah, I found it. Okay.
There's a file that says Catherine Pope on there. Oh. Okay. There you go.
Okay,
And so welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
thanks. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I'm Lisa Rupert. I'm Vice President of Housing and Violence Prevention with the YWCA Metro Vancouver, and I live at 825 Salisbury Drive in Vancouver. I'd like to speak to Councillor Catherine Pope's motion for social housing above a new fire hall in the district of North Vancouver by sharing the YWCA's positive experiences with a project called Pacific Spirit Terrace in Vancouver. In 2014, the City of Vancouver was planning to redevelop Firehall number 5 and decided to partner with a nonprofit housing provider to add new affordable housing on top of the Firehall. The YWCA Vancouver was selected as the partner, and we planned 4 stories of safe, affordable housing for single mothers and their dependent children. That's a picture of the old Firehall. The City of Vancouver was the project manager. The YWCA and the fire department were treated as equal clients in terms of requirements and input into the building. The fire department budget covered much of the building structure and all of the seismic requirements of a post-disaster building. The YWCA committed to a fixed price in 2014, and any unexpected costs during the build were borne by the city and the fire department. The building was designed as two completely separate entities, separate entrances, separate street addresses with soundproofing between them, and the infrastructure, water, gas, and electrical, was separated as well. The City of Vancouver owns the land and has a 60-year lease with the YWCA to operate the affordable housing portion. I think I went ahead too many slides. I did. Oh, no. The cost. Okay, the total construction costs were 10.7 million. The City of Vancouver contributed 5.5 million, and the YWCA Metro Vancouver had a capital campaign to raise over 5.2 million to cover our costs. The list on the slide shows some of our donors. In the midst of a housing crisis, single mothers who have the lowest income of any family type in British Columbia are disproportionately impacted. This project added 31 units of affordable housing that enable these families to stay in their communities where they have established supports, and it enables their children to continue in the same schools, maintain the same friends, and have stability. We know that that's important for their long-term well-being and success. We were able to offer 15 of these units at rent geared to income levels, and 16 of the units with rents based on 60% of BC Housing's high income limits, which is far below most affordable housing being built. The reason we can afford these rents is that we don't have to have a mortgage, and we couldn't have fundraised enough to do this if we didn't have the land contributed by the City of Vancouver. The YWCA section of the building is called Pacific Spirit Terrace, and that's in the pictures you can see. I love the rooftop garden in particular. You can't see it in this picture, but there's apple trees and we're growing all sorts of food for the community there. It took 5 years to complete it, and we opened in the fall of 2019. We are very satisfied with the ongoing partnership with the Firehall and highly recommend similar projects. It really makes the most of municipal land. I know that Ishtar Transition Housing Society is in discussions with Langley to do something similar. And I'm happy to answer any questions council might have about the benefits of doing this sort of partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item that we have. Tonight we have a delegation. This is Yang Wang and Wendy McCullough from Impact North Shore are going to come down and do a presentation. Just to describe the slight difference with a delegation versus a regular public input, this is where a nonprofit or organization within the community would like an opportunity to speak in front of the council about particular issues or update on their operations. It allows them to speak for up to 5 minutes, and then afterwards there is an opportunity for council to ask questions and get responses. I will encourage the council, we do have a very full agenda tonight, so when we get to that question and answer part, I'm going to have to be a little brutal on the get to the question point and try to keep moving that along, just because we do have some time constraints this evening. But at this point, I did want to welcome Impact North Shore. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having us. My name is Yang Wang. I have the honor to chair the board of Impact North Shore, and this is our amazing executive director, Wendy. Impact North Shore is one of the largest immigration settlement agency in the region. We have been around serving the community for over 30 years, and we have impacted like thousands of people's lives in this community. And I think the latest number we got last year, 780 residents of District of North Vancouver has been using our service. So our vision is always to build an even more inclusive and equitable community. So over the years, we have been working towards that goal. And we, as a we at Impact North Shore, we offer immigration settlement, employment placement, English language training, schoolwork, and other initiatives such as anti-racism and social equality, all those initiatives. So I would like to pass on Wendy to share with you some of the numbers we have.
Thank you, Yang, and it's lovely to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. We want to express our gratitude for the continued support from the District of North Vancouver. Last year, we got over $11,000 from the Community Service Grant allocation and also from a one-time COVID top-up that you had for us. And we are also very proud to bring federal and provincial dollars into the community as well to support our residents. We are also very proud that we are able to offer the North Shore Immigrant Inclusion Partnership Table. And there are many people from your staff who represented there, the library, the Recreation Commission, and your Community Planning Department is on that too. We're also very proud that we're able to participate in the District of North Vancouver initiatives, such as the Poverty Reduction Strategy. And also we supported Council to have the motion to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. Thank you for all of your kind understanding for the work of the journey and experiences of immigrants and newcomers, and for championing healthy communities and supporting our work.
Great, thank you. And we are not here to ask for anything in particular. So basically, we just come to introduce ourselves. And actually, we would like to hear, like, as elected leaders of our community, like, what do you guys have? What do you expect from us? What can we do better? Well,
well, thank you very much for your presentation. We do appreciate it. I did just, I know that when an organization changes its brand, there's a little bit of time where people may know them as other groups. You were formerly the North Shore Multicultural Society, which was very well known in the community as well. I used to serve as the chair of a Immigrant Settlement Services Society, and one of the biggest challenges we had, and the reason why we ultimately moved our building and moved to another location, was because the challenges we found in finding low barrier positions relatively nearby to help people get settled and get their first job in Canada. You know, one of the things we found was that it was very hard for us to get businesses to you know, see those low barrier jobs as an opportunity for our organization to potentially fulfill. And we ended up moving because the downtown area was extremely hard to find low barrier jobs, and we moved to an area that had more options. I guess my question would be, what can we do to help through the chamber or through other business contacts to make sure that we're having some low barrier jobs identified in the community to help support your efforts?
We have quite extensive employment services for newcomers, not only for folks who are permanent residents, but also for temporary foreign workers, whose numbers, you know, are increasing in the community. We work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce and with over 100 local employers to look at reducing those barriers to employment for newcomers in our community. We would ask for you to just continue to champion the importance of immigration as the economy is becoming dependent on immigrants to fulfill those positions, and also to continue to express your voice to lower the racism and the barriers that immigrants have as they attach to the local labor market.
Thank you very much. Other members of council like to add their questions? Councillor Mall.
Thank you very much. I actually work for a similar organization in Vancouver. You might have heard of them, Success.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, one of the biggest issues facing people on the North Shore is housing. How are new arrivals coming to your organization? What are they facing, and how are they dealing with that? If you can maybe speak to that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Certainly, just like all residents on the North Shore, housing seems to be a real big issue, doesn't it? So immigrants are no exception to that. We've actually just finished a survey with going out to people who use our services. So they both temporary and permanent residents. And I was just looking at the results of that. We're going to be producing an information sheet on housing, and we'll make sure that you guys get it. But we were finding that there were very high numbers. 75% of immigrants are struggling to find housing that they can afford. And then, of course, with foreign credential recognition intersecting with that, newcomers often find themselves in lower paid jobs, and then it's harder to pay for housing as well. Also, when we consider the high cost of groceries, a report was just released and it showed that North Shore actually has the highest costs of grocery bills in Metro Vancouver. All of those things are coming together to make it tough for immigrants on the North Shore.
Thank you very much. I know this is an annual update largely, and do appreciate your presence. I don't see any other council meetings, so I'll accept receipt. Just moved by Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded by Councillor Ma. Call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation here today.
Thank you so much. And we just have left a bit more information and a small token of appreciation on the desk.
You. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Council, returning to reports. We do have rather full discussion tonight with a lot of items returning back from public hearings and some issues that are going to take our time. I'm wondering if I can propose a consent agenda of 8.1 and 8.2. I know in most years we have a more fulsome discussion of these particular grants, but I think for brevity tonight, we'll stick to the principles of it. Moved by Councillor Murray, second by Councillor Forbes. Would anybody else like 8.1 or 8.2 withdrawn? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? The motion carries. If you are here for item 8.1 or 8.2, they've both just passed. Okay, the next item up for discussion is item 8.3. This is a remedial action requirement nuisance property at 1232 Dogwood Crescent. Just going to turn to the clerk here. Just before, I understand that remedial action orders are a quasi-judicial setting. We have an opportunity for the applicant to make a presentation if they so choose, and we have to give them a reasonable opportunity to be heard. I've interpreted that to be like our public hearing, where a reasonable opportunity to be heard is a 5-5, and then potentially an additional 5 if they do not repeat themselves. Does that meet your requirements, Mr. Clerk?
Your worship, I'm reluctant to put a measure on reasonable. That's something the court would ultimately decide. But the person involved should have an opportunity to state their side of the case. As long as they don't repeat themselves, then I think that's when they'd indicate time's up.
Okay. Is there a representative here from 1232 Dogwood Crescent that would like to speak to this item? And, should the staff presentation be first, or should we go straight to the speaker? Okay, so you're welcome to sit for just a moment. I'm going to have the staff make their opening comments first, but get comfortable there. You're welcome. And so I'll turn to staff for the introduction to the item.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. 1232 Dogwood Crescent has become unsightly with accumulated materials and derelict vehicles. Staff has made every effort to encourage and obtain compliance with district bylaws and community standards as documented in tonight's staff report. While there is evidence the owners have made efforts to remove some of the buildup and accumulations on the property, there remains extensive accumulation and materials and derelict vehicles. Therefore, staff recommend that council declare the accumulated materials and derelict vehicles constituting a nuisance, and request that council impose remedial action requirements as detailed in the report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Milburn. This time you are welcome to make a representation. Welcome.
Rory Jordan, 1232 Dogwood Crescent, resident since 1977, making 46 years. There has been, yes, salvage and vehicles on the property. We have a drug addicted son at the present time living on the property in the yard due to certain reasons of theft and stuff like that. He does try to help out, but his mind is not there. So I've been trying to clean up not one, but 3 campsites that he had on the property. I'm 74 years old. I do work with my hands, and I request at least another 6 months to bring it more up to standards. I've been cleaning it now myself mostly for the last, well, since basically they said to clear a sight line to my property because I had stuff on old vehicle in the front yard and people were complaining that they could see something. I have in the front of my property 6-foot fences. I have 8-foot fences in the back, and on the, I'm a pie shape, so let's say the front is 6. I have down the sides 110 on each side that are 6-foot fences, of which one is now dilapidated, which I have to rebuild at some point. I have a back park strip fence that is 8 foot with lattice, making the 8-foot finish. And I have another fence on the other side of my property that is also a 6 foot. So it works this, and this. I'm basically boxed in. I have vehicles in my backyard that were originally ones that were driven. Some were damaged when the road work was done and our new paved roads got put in. And they were just parked because they were supposed to be a remuneration between the district and myself that never happened because I refused to apply for it. I have been moving a lot of metals out. I've been recycling a lot of cardboards, plastics, because that's part of what I do for a living. I go out and I salvage cans and bottles once a week to get extra dollars. I do part-time work. I'm technically 40% disabled, but I don't look it because I keep myself working to keep myself mobile. So all I request is another 6 months. I should reiterate on the vehicles. I've had talked to scrappers for the vehicles, and because of their position in the backyard, and there's a park belt behind my place, which I had full access to before, and now I don't have full access. That's a restriction to get these vehicles out of the backyard. I had one in the front on the street that has just left, but there was a controversy on getting a second one out this weekend because of where it was in my front yard and how much energy it would take to get out. It's not a situation of not wanting to get rid of stuff. It's a situation of sorting, figuring out what's good, what's bad, recycling, and away we go. Thank you for your time, Mayor and Council.
Thank you very much. Okay, any additional comments from staff? Okay, and Mr. Clerk, just want to clarify what deliberations the council can do, or we go straight into speaking opportunity?
Your worship, council can ask questions of staff or Mr. Jordan to clarify the matter. And then there is a motion recommended by staff that could be put on the floor.
Okay. So my question for staff, I mean, I know this issue has been going on for a long time. It's not just a recent issue, but I am sympathetic to, you know, the challenges someone might face when they're managing, you know, their own physical limitations, but also directly assisting family members with challenges as well. I think the request for 6 months is probably a little long, but I think that 30 days is also a little bit short considering, how long this has been in the state. We can probably get somewhere in the middle. So I would be recommending 90 days for compliance. So I would be supportive of the order with a change in date from August 21st to 90 days out, which I don't know that date off the top of my head. So I would be supportive of that recommendation.
Your worship, would August 21st, 2023, would that provide approximately 3 months?
No.
Oh, pardon me, October.
That would suit me. I think that 90 days is enough. Since most of these items should be mobile, I think that 90 days should be enough, although I recognize there's definitely going to be access issues, a tricky lot, but so I'll be moving that recommendation that it is amended to from 30 days to 90 days.
Just to clarify, your worship, you'll move the motion, but replace August 21st with October 31st, October 21st.
October 21st, yes, I will. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Ma. Are there any other additional questions of the applicant or staff? Yes, please, Councillor Murray.
Could staff just respond as to the process that if the site is not cleaned up, what the process will be to assist the property owner to clear out the yard?
Mr. Milburn?
Your worship, I believe the question is essentially answered in the recommendation. If the owner would fail to act, and presumably if the October 21st to 2023 is approved, then the district will be authorized through its contractors and agents to essentially affect the corrective action. And so we'd be approaching the owner to find a suitable time to enter the property and to remove those works. And we would be imposing those costs on the owner of the property. I think in all discussions we've had with the owner so far, their preference is to clean the property up themselves and to sort the materials. But this is essentially the fallback position should that not occur.
So my question, I'll ask it in a different way then. So when we go in, can you describe the process as to how we will be dealing with this issue? So will there be support services? Where will the cars be pulled out by a crane, for instance? Will they be sent to scrappers? That obviously any cost that we incur will come out of any salvage value. It's those kinds of details, Mr. Milburn, that I'm looking for.
Okay, Mr. Milburn.
Your worship, those details would be yet to be determined once we had found an appropriate contractor. They would go onto the property. We haven't had the ability to go onto the property to do that kind of detailed assessment in terms of how the materials could be extracted. So we would have to work with the contractor at that time, who would then devise a plan to appropriately remove the materials and recycle them if appropriate and could be done, or dispose of them in an appropriate location. In terms of support services, that would be based on a conversation with the owner at the time when we revealed the plan and presented them with the plan and timing for the works to be revealed. So I apologize, I don't have those kinds of details. I think that would be a detail to come once we knew more about exactly how to remove the material and when.
Maybe we could start setting up some of that while we're waiting for the next 90 days. Do we know a cost involved? Do we have an estimate of a cost, or no? We would have to get
We do not at this time, your worship.
Okay. And we also don't know how long it would take.
We do not, your worship.
Yeah, those kinds of details I think are important when we get to this point, because it gives us sort of an idea as to what 90 days means. Is it going to be another 90 days to be able to clean it up? And then you're getting into bad weather, snow, et cetera, potentially. So I think those kinds of details, when we look at these sort of remedial orders, need to be brought forward earlier. I think these we have had, these issues over the years. And I think it takes a significant amount of time to go through this, work with the property owner, and try to get these sites cleaned up. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Ma, questions, please.
Thank you. And we can ask them of the owner as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir, for coming here and speaking on the issue before us. I just want to be clear that you are in agreement that the site needs to be cleared.
That's why I'm clearing it.
Okay, because I did go by earlier. I don't live far from there, and I did talk to some of the people from the resident neighborhood association, and they are concerned about accumulation.
Yes, the accumulation is, like I say, vehicles that were driven at one point and then parked, and then they were kept because of we were told that we wouldn't be bothered if I had tall fences. So they were kept for remedial senior backup money if you need it, of which we have virtually no income at the present time other than old age pension. And we have out of 7, I had 5 kids, 10 grandkids, my wife and myself. And we had one of the sons got badly onto drugs. So we adopted one of his kids because him and his girlfriend were on drugs. So we actually have 6 children. And of the 6, I have 2 daughters, a grandson that was adopted. I have a son that's on drugs that's at home. I have both my daughters. One is working from home, and I have one that's ill, medical problems. My wife is getting, I think, Alzheimer's because it's just, Plus, I do part-time work, and I wasn't able to do a lot of work because I spent 3 to 4 months cleaning my yard, not only of tires, rims, blackberry bush grew over a lot of spots. We had problems with our neighbors over the years. Fire department was sent. I wouldn't let them on the property, so they finally went to the court and got an injunction to enter the property. Found nothing wrong, and when they didn't do nothing about the person that put in a false report. I've had the person also vandalizing vehicles by shooting rocks and stuff. We have bad neighbors. We try to keep to ourselves. That's why we put the 6-foot fences up. Other things that have happened, we've had the police calls, so thus known by police, their favorite quote on TV. Just small things like when the district started coming to the front of the property, they wanted certain things cleaned up. I abide by it. I got it cleaned up. They wanted sight lines cleaned over the fence line. I cleaned it up. They wanted, I forget what else. There's been several things, but they never once set a date on when the cleanup in my yard was to start. That was left me because I would stop them from coming on my property because I felt like they were always on a fishing trip, didn't have adequate information. Anything that they may have got was from satellite photos from years ago, and that has changed quite a bit. Just the center of the yard is cleaned out quite a bit. I've got a long way to go, I know, but it's a one-man process, and I was getting help from my grandson for a few days, but remedial-wise, I wasn't able to keep up with it. So this is one of the reasons I've asked for an extension. We don't want to get into jeopardizing the property with an add-on figure that we may not, at our age, be able to come up and pay, which would put us in jeopardy of losing what we've worked to keep for so many years, even in a disability situation. I can't say too much about the disability thing because I brought myself back from not being able to walk to walking, and then broken again, and then walking sort of situation. So I have a drive, and when I have a drive, I just go with it. So
thank you for answering that. I'll save my questions, but maybe one for staff. I'm trying to understand what would be considered cleared. I was down there, and there is significant material on the front, and it's going to take a while to get that out. So I'm just trying to understand what it means to be cleared. And
thank you, Worship. And just to note, written correspondence provided to the owner of the property is attached to the staff report in terms of the notice time periods. Also within the written documentation, staff have detailed the specific accumulations of materials. So we have started documenting the material on site, and the owner has provided us some photos on the site as well. And we've identified in lists of materials that need to be, that are the accumulation that needs to be corrected. So that has been provided in writing to the owner. And as the owner continues to modify the accumulations on the property, we would work with him to ensure that it reflects council's remedial order tonight. But it includes a wide range of materials that are listed in the staff report, including vehicles and other accumulations. And that's not a dispute. The owner has identified that there is material on the site, and they are working towards removing that.
Could you also say what some of those other items are so the rest of the staff knows? I believe there was things like ladders, tools. Basically, they wanted the car parts, which I realize, and I have myself 3 diesel trucks. Parts are hard to get by, so I stockpile a few of them. I have had 1 or 2 accidents, minor fender benders, which are some of the parts that I might have for those trucks. Because of their year and whatnot, the parts aren't something you can just walk over to your local store and say, I'll just take that one there. Oh, we don't have that one. That's usually the case. That's why there might be a few extra parts for the trucks. All the car parts are in the vehicles, period. They're not all over, other than spare wheels, of which the vehicles have been sitting, so they have flat tires and stuff has to be rotated around, and you have to, well, there's still a remedial cost to fix a flat tire, a minimum of $25. So it gives you some indication. I have to find the tires, switch them around, then try to get the vehicle up and moving from sitting in its spot for 15 or 20 years. And it's just things that I have to do myself. But I would ask also that I get the access to the park strip back, because I have a 10-foot gate in the back that I can maybe get my truck in there and start breaking the vehicles free from the ground, sort of thing, and move them closer to where a wrecker can take them out. And before, I had it for many years. I used to keep that park strip clean. I had a chain link fence up, but then we had a lot of breaking and entries, fruit tree thefts and stuff like that. So.
Okay. I see a question from Councillor Pope.
Mr. Jordan, I'm so sorry to hear what's happened with you and your life circumstances and your family's circumstances. And I realize that there may be some mental illness that's playing a significant role in all of this. It sounds like what you're saying is, even though you'd like to get it clear, it's going to be extremely challenging for you. And for that reason, I want to ask Mr. Milburn, do we know of any social services that can assist in this kind of situation? And can we direct Mr. Jordan in that regard?
Mr. Milburn.
Your Worship, we're happy to provide information that we're aware of. I don't have information off the top of my head in terms of specific contacts, but we do have social planners in the district that work with various folks, and we can provide listing of information and contact for various resources in reflection of the comments made tonight, and we'd be happy to do that as a follow-up to tonight's direction.
And would you be willing to accept that help, Mr. Jordan?
I can only accept what my wife says I can accept.
All right, I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Yes.
So when the cost of the cleanup, if done by the district, is applied to the property taxes of Mr. Melnick and Mr. Jordan, are those property taxes, how does it show on the taxes? Is it the part that can be deferred? Is it a separate debt owing? Because seniors can defer their property taxes if it's added to property taxes. is that a separate line item as a debt owed to the district? Or is it just applied to the total amount of property taxes owed? And other than the utilities that he'd have to pay, the property taxes on the land could be deferred.
Mr. Stewart, I don't know that we have someone from finance on the meeting, so.
Yeah, I can follow up with finance to give you some more information. I couldn't answer that right off the top of my head either.
Oh, is Rick here?
Oh.
He sort of pops in and out just unexpectedly when the word finance is spoken about.
Mr. Daniluk, are you aware how that presents on an actual statement? I'm assuming the provincial government doesn't allow deferment of assessments. Is that fair?
With this particular matter, we'll follow up and report back on it, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I don't have the details.
Okay.
The reason I say this, and Mr. Jordan, I know that you're going to do, you're going to, give your best effort, but this is a massive, massive cleanup, as you're aware.
I'm better than halfway there, so it was worse when you were first starting.
Yeah. I'm just a bit worried that the 90 days is going to come and it's going to be probably much in the same situation, given the financial situation and the kind of equipment that you'll need to take into this property. This property, as you have, talked about, Mayor Little, has been, in this condition for many years. And, I can't help but think, I just moved and I'm overwhelmed by just moving with all of my kids. I can't imagine dealing with this, but I would think that it might be much easier for us to come in and assist you. You would be part of it, but to come in and assist you do this project, because I just think 90 days is going to come. It's been years and years and years. And, for that reason, I am not going to support the 90-day extension. I think this property needs to be cleaned up sooner than later. And I think we can assist Mr. Jordan in this. And,
It's not just an auto situation in the backyard. It's also green waste and stuff. I've been recycling up to as many as 20 cans in a week of green waste, blackberry bush, tree cuttings, grapevine, stuff like that. And it seems like, sooner clean up a spot and you go close your eyes and it's back again. Oh my goodness, right? So I don't know what to do with half of it, but I'd rather clean my own yard than have somebody in and cost me a fee that I can't afford to pay. And I don't want to lose my home just because I can't afford to pay something.
All right, I'm going to, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I support Councillor Murray's position. I mean, when I look at these pictures, I don't see how that's going to be addressed, given the circumstances you have stated. So from my point of view, putting it down the road 3 months is not a constructive exercise. So I'll be voting in opposition.
Difficult time hearing you, and I want you to say it on the record.
Yeah, from my point of view, when I look at these pictures, I don't see that, and putting into context what you've explained, I don't see how this can be addressed in 90 days. So I just think 90 days is just putting it down the road. The same problem is going to be there. So I'm voting in the same way as Councillor Murray.
But you're looking at pictures that were then, not now. That's the problem. Everything daily around my place changes, like bottles go in, bottles go out, scrap goes in, scrap goes out.
It has been a very long time as well. And so we are setting a date. So right now, I'm going to call the question on 90 days. And if that's not successful, then we'll check in with the clerk and see what our options are. Mr. Clerk, if the 90 days is not successful, are we permitted to have a follow-up motion?
I would say, in my opinion, Your Worship, 90 days versus whatever that is,
6 months.
under 30 days.
Oh, sorry.
If that's to be presented, because I hear a shorter time frame than 90 days, is materially different and probably could come back in its original format if somebody chose to move that, if the 90 days proposal fails.
Councillor Back, you have additional comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for speaking with us this evening. I certainly want to recognize that I hear what you're saying and I empathize with your situation, both your family situation and what you've done so far to try and clean up your property. I'm of the opinion to support Councillor Muri's position as well. I think we want to work with you to get this cleaned up sooner rather than later. And I think having you continue to undertake this by yourself is going to be a really tough thing to do, even if we do extend this. So I'm going to be voting against the extension to 90 days.
That's what they said about me walking again, really easy. It's not easy. You just push through it and away you go. It's just when I do this work, I shut my mind off and I'm there for 12 and 16 hours at a time. So
Just to be clear, what I'm proposing gives him an opportunity for 90 days to address the issue as best he can on his own as well, versus the original recommendation, which was that it has to be completed in 30 days. And then it would be professionally done at his cost entirely. And so the 90 days was to give a little more grace to the homeowner to do as much as he can by himself.
Can I reiterate on those
I'm actually going to
pictures?
stop you, Mr. Jordan, for a second. We need to be able to come to a resolution. So right now, I don't hear, sorry, Councillor Forbes, you'd like to add some comments? Go ahead, Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for coming and speaking to us tonight. And
Thank you.
I too appreciate that sometimes life throws you too many hurdles to try
Too
and
many.
get over all of them. What I would suggest is I agree with Councillor Murray about the 90 days that we might be in the same position. I think 30 days is too short if we're going to really try and see if we can connect Mr. Jordan with some social support. Yeah, social support. I mean, if anybody's seen it on TV, I'm sure they've seen Canadian hoarders, and I'm not referring to you as a hoarder, but there are charities and people that will come out and help. So I think 30 days is a bit short to get that contact going and possibly be able to help Mr. Jordan out. 90 days is, I agree with Councillor Murray and Councillor Hanson, might just extend it too long and we're in the same boat and we'll get into the winter months. So I would want to make an amending motion to go in the middle if the 90 days doesn't pass.
Okay, I think okay. And so I'm not hearing enough support for my motion, and so I'm willing to withdraw my motion. Who's the seconder on my motion? Councillor Ma, are you willing to withdraw seconding and we'll reintroduce it with 60 days? Same thing that's in the report.
But doesn't he get more time with 90 days?
No.
No, but
You don't want more time.
we want it sooner, but we want enough time to be able to contact people to help Mr. Jordan out hopefully without.
Okay, sorry, we're not getting this discussion on through the microphones and stuff, and that's not fair. So I just want to make sure, Councillor Ma, are you withdrawing your seconding, and then we'll reintroduce.
Sure, I'll
it. That
withdraw
motion
my
doesn't sound
seconding.
like that motion will be successful, and so Councillor Forbes, you'd like to introduce a motion that says 60 days. So instead of the August 21st, it would be September 21st, and that's seconded by Councillor Murray. Okay, any other discussion on that motion? We'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming today, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item up for discussion is item 8.4. This is Development Variance Permit 27.22, 382 Seashell Lane. We started with a bunch of discussion in the public input period. Now I'm going to go to staff for their comments on the matter.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mayor and Council and member of public. This is a development variance permit application for the subject site at 382 Seashell Lane. The variance is for a coach house proposal. And as staff report outlined, that the subject site is a waterfront lot with limited options for siting and access for both the principal as well as the accessory dwellings and structures. And so, yeah, it's fronting Seashell Lane on one side and then the ocean on the other. And the variance is essentially, can I have the next slide, please? The variance is essentially for citing the coach house in what's technically the front yard, and also a couple of other relatively minor variances for setback and total site coverage, total building site coverage. Staff evaluated this application based on zoning bylaw and then zoning bylaw intent, as well as neighborliness. And if you go to the next slide. So this one is looking at from the Seashell Lane towards the water, so it's east side, and the subject site is to the left hand of the slide, and you can see most of the building on this side of the block. They're a one-story building with access off the lane and also garages, in technically the front yard. So what's proposed here, it's considered contextual. And then if you look on the other side of the lane, they are two-story buildings, and because of the slope, they look like three-story buildings. And so to keep the subject site, the main building as well as the accessory building at one story is the right move in terms of mitigating those private view impacts. And so I think, all in all, in our evaluation, this application do meet the zoning bylaw and zoning bylaw intent. And also the application has done a pretty good job in terms of locating the coach house as the least impactful location on the site. So we do recommend approval, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Meary, is that a holdover from the last item, or that's for this item?
No, that's for this item.
Okay, go ahead.
The development variance permit 27.22 for a coach house at 382 Seashell Lane is not issued.
So the position that you're putting forward is that it's not issued?
Yeah,
Okay.
not issued.
Seconded by Councillor Hanson. Discussion?
Thank you, Mayor Little. So I know this area very well. I grew up in the area. Many years ago, there was a successful litigation on a property across the street on Seashell Lane on the corner next to Little Kate's Park. It was a successful litigation. It held that the covenant had, there were standards within the covenant, and the neighbor challenged the waterfront property in front, and they were successful. This is not a lane, it's a street, and it's actually a flow through street when you're coming down Dollar Road and you make a right on Roslyn to go down to Little Kate's Park. You come down to the bottom of the street next to what we call the castle. It's the old dollar mill burner. And then you make a left along Seashell Lane, and that's how you get out. It's around the block. So it is the front of a regular street, but it's always been referred to Seashell Lane. This is, again, going into an area that we haven't done. We've done one coach house in the front of a yard, and that was on Dollarton Highway next to Roche Point. It was a very unique situation. And I just don't want to go into the precedence of, and I understand that these are all on a case-by-case basis, but if council ever changed the policies around coach houses, then we could have coach houses on many front properties in the municipality. And I don't think that was the intention of building coach houses on the front yards of properties. The other thing I'm concerned about, and we have our environment department here tonight, but is the amount of coverage on this site. It's a significant amount of coverage, and the covenant also talks about not secondary dwellings on these properties. And these properties and their massings are getting more extreme as the years go on. No longer is the yards taken up by lawn and garden. They're taken up by a significant amount of cement and dwelling units. So I have concerns of the siting of an extra facility not absorbing our weather. It's a piece of property, and I note, council, on page 4 of the report. The principal dwelling, a 2-vehicle garage, a significant amount of decking, I suppose, and then a proposed coach house with very little, penetrable surface on the property. So coach houses were meant as an addition. We put the variance process in place in order to address the issues of the neighborhoods. And obviously, this neighborhood is not in support of this coach house sited on this property. And for those reasons, I will be supporting the motion I put forward not to issue this development variance permit.
Councillor Hanson, your comments?
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with all that Councillor Murray stated. In addition, I'm going to zero in on the issue of the lot coverage. This lot is 9,679 feet, and this allows for lot coverage according to the bylaws, of 3,388 feet, 38%. The proponent wishes to exceed this by 400 feet, which is essentially the same size as the coach house, to bring the total building coverage to 39%. Now, my challenge with this is that the proponent has designed the house and the coach house at exactly the same time. I mean, I'd have a totally different position if somebody came forward and said, we have this existing structure, it was built for these reasons. Now I wish to build a coach house, and we can't accommodate that without allowing for exceeding the building coverage. But to sit back and from the beginning, come up with a plan which deliberately violates the bylaws by exceeding the total building coverage, I believe sets a dangerous precedent. Variances are one thing, but I don't believe we should be designing whole structures that are in violation of the bylaws. If that's what we're going to do, then we need to change the bylaws. The bylaws have to apply equally. Law has to be equally applied. Otherwise, we would find ourselves in a situation where proposals are conducted in this willy-nilly fashion, and that doesn't lead to, in my view, good governance. So yeah, I'm going to highlight that as particular issue when I vote against or vote in favor of Councillor Murray's motion.
I have a bit of a different view on it. I think that the building itself is, the coach house itself is very modest on a rather large lot. We're not in this discussion because of its over gross square footage for the building. They could have built the building 400 square feet larger. That's why we don't have a variance for the total gross floor area. We only have a variance for the siding, the coverage and the siding. And I'm at a bit of a loss, because I think if this wasn't a waterfront house, we probably would have approved this out of the gate. And the sensitivity to it is because people have raised questions about views. And I want to restate that in my view, you don't own your view. I get that there's a lot of people who have paid a tremendous amount to acquire a view, and our view is obviously very pleasant. I wish more people in our community had great public spaces to view things from as well. But I have a problem with us opposing this on those kinds of issues. The other issue that was raised was the question about parking. There's no question, there's parking problems throughout this entire strip and area, but there's also major areas of the district of North Vancouver that don't have any on-street parking, including my own house. I don't have on-street parking in front of my place. So I have to commit about 1,800 square feet of my own property in order to be able to accommodate cars turning around. I happen to think this proposal allows for about 4 vehicles to be stored off-site, which should be adequate, because I think we only require it to be 3, if I'm not mistaken, 2 for the main house and 1 for the coach house. And in this case, we're going to end up with 4. And so they've exceeded that requirement. So I'm at a bit of a loss. And if the front yard issue, I get that is a reasonable question on siting. The only thing is, obviously in this case, if it was in the backyard, it would be completely inaccessible. There's no opportunity for an overland passage. It's obviously waterfront on the other side. And so So I'm having some challenges with this. I think that I will not be supportive of the motion that's on the floor. And if there's an opportunity to introduce issuance, I will be supporting that, because I don't think these are the same, these principles can be, we would not be able to produce coach houses in the rest of the community if we don't allow some wiggle room over siting issues and over maximum lot coverage. And I think, so I just disagree with those arguments. So at this point, I'm not supportive of the current motion on the floor. The next speaker is Councillor Back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is it one or two off-street parking spots that's being created for the use of the coach house, if I may ask staff through you, Your Worship?
Through Your Worship, it's one additional off-street parking space for the additional coach house dwelling unit.
Okay.
Total of 4.
There's 3 other spots.
For a total of 3 spots, 2 in the garage
Three,
that serves the main dwelling and 1 additional off-street parking
Okay.
space for the coach house.
Yeah, I am generally supportive of coach houses for the most part, and I don't see this one as being one that I wouldn't support. I agree with the mayor's position. I think it's unique in that it's a waterfront property, and I can appreciate that everyone wants to maintain the view that they may have had for many, many years. But I think the design here is quite sensitive to that. I've been by the property. I think the main house fits in quite nicely with the lot. A lot of the concerns also seem to be about an increase in traffic to the lane, and I can certainly appreciate how busy this area is, particularly in the summer and on the weekends. But I just don't think this one coach house is going to add any significant amount of parking or traffic issues in the area. So introducing some housing diversity in a very single family neighborhood, I think is a good thing, and I'll be supporting it. So I won't be supporting the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is first time speaker, Councillor Ma. Yes.
Thank you. I just want to make a point that I did hear the local residents' concerns. And similar to Councillor Back and Mayor Little, these current concerns usually come up when we have people applying for laneway houses. The key points I'm considering is that the main house and the ancillary house are 1 story. And I believe that was done to minimize the impact on the neighbors. And the front yard seems to be the only reasonable location, given that it is a waterfront property. I do support gentle densification, and it will take 1 unit at a time, but that has less of an impact on the community than putting up a 27-story building. So I will not support the motion on the floor, and if there is a motion to approve this, I will support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, first time speaker, Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question for staff. There's been discussion about a covenant on this property where one of the statements was that there is not to be a second resident on the lot. Is that true? Is that covenant there? And can you explain how we're able to not pay attention to a covenant if that is there?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. There are numerous private covenants between property owners in the District of North Vancouver and all across British Columbia. The district does not have specific authority to enforce those covenants. So for example, if this was not a development variance permit matter, but simply a matter of building permit, we would issue the building permit based on compliance to the zoning bylaw, and we wouldn't be looking at the covenant at all. It would be essentially a third-party condition unrelated to whether or not we issue that building permit. The matter before council tonight, though, is a development variance permit. That's a discretional decision of council. Council can weigh and consider the interests of the neighborhood and other considerations, not simply look at code compliance or zoning compliance. In this case, there's a specific request to vary certain conditions to allow this to occur. So council isn't obligated to consider it from the variance perspective, but council may consider it amongst all the various issues that they're aware of and concerns they've heard tonight.
Thank you. I had one other point I was going to make, and now I've lost my thought. I guess I was just going to make the same point that Councillor Murray has made, that we have made it perhaps unofficial, but we haven't put coach houses in front yards. And I do believe there was one other one that had, well, no, there was one other one besides Dollarton and Upper Lonsdale that we put it in the front yard, but because of the growth and canopy that was in the front yard, it wouldn't be noticed anyway. So we did approve that one. So I'm still concerned about coach houses going in front yards. And if we allow this coach house in a front yard, then the rest of the neighbors along there could ask for the same thing. And then that gets into the traffic issue and the parking issue on that particular roadway. Those are just my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Murray, a second time.
I'm just wondering, given that this is a new build,
You're on.
I'm on. Oh, my mic's behind my computer. So when was the building permit given for the main house?
There you go.
I'm just asking staff.
That helps.
I'm
in this
asking
case.
questions.
Normally it doesn't help,
to
but that
staff.
does
So
help.
2020, and then the coach house was a secondary addition to that. You know, that's too bad, because there is access off Golf Drive to this property. And it, you know, it is curious why we're adding it after the fact when we're still under a build. Yeah, so I just, you know, I just think putting coach houses in front yards is not where we wanted to go with this. And we did put it through the variance process to be able to address the issues of the surrounding neighborhood. And I think citing is unfortunate in this case.
Thank you very much. Would really love to draw a response out of Councillor Pope. As, I think I've got 3 and 3 at this point.
I'll bite.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I will not be voting in favor of the motion that's on the table. I think we need to move forward with coach houses. I second many of the comments that Councillor Back has made in regards to this particular development. And I think that, you know, for me, it goes back to the whole issue of housing and development. We are a community of single family homes, and that's part of the reason we're in the mess we're in terms of a housing crisis. This is obviously not going to solve the housing crisis, but I feel like we can't be sort of picking and choosing which coach houses we want to approve, because that sends the wrong message. I would like to see many more coach houses built in the District of North Van, and I'd like to see many more families kept together in the District of North Van through multiplexes on single family lots, infill housing, and these types of coach houses. So those are my comments.
So it's been moved and seconded. I'm gonna, Councillor Forbes, second time.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is not about the housing crisis that we have in the district. We all know we have a housing crisis, a 400 square foot, one parking spot coach house. Has nothing to do with multiplexes and everything else that Councillor Pope was just discussing. What it has to do with is, are we going to stand by the unofficial rule of not having these in front yards? And so 400 square feet, I'm all for all kinds of housing. I have been all last term. I am this term. This is not about the greater good of providing more housing to the district. So I'm still going to vote in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Okay. I'm prepared to call the question on the motion. All those in favor, Contrary minded? Motion is defeated. I'm happy to move the original staff recommendation. Is there a seconder for it? Seconded by Councillor Back. Any further discussion on the staff recommendation? I'm going to call a question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. The permit is issued. Oh, sorry. All those against. Sorry. There you go. Noted with Councillors Forbes, Murray, and Hanson opposed. And permit is issued. Okay. Thank you very much, Council. Next discussion is on item 8.5. This is the proposed update to the step code requirements. And Mr. Wright, you're going to be, are there any introductory comments or straight to Mr. Wright? Okay.
Nothing really from me, Your Worship. Just want to acknowledge that Council directed staff back in February to initiate consultation with regard to moving from step 3 to step 4 of the Energy Step Code. And we're reporting back in terms of the results of that consultation with the proposed bylaw. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Wright to provide a little bit more background. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Wright. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, members of council and members of the public. Before you this evening are proposed bylaw amendments that would increase the minimum energy efficiency levels for new homes in the district of North Vancouver. The proposed bylaw amendment advances the district's climate action area of low carbon buildings. For context, as of May 1st of this year, the BC Building Code now requires step 3 as the minimum performance level for all new homes across the province. The District of North Vancouver, along with the City of North Vancouver and the District of West Vancouver, have been requiring a minimum of step 3 since 2018. This requirement applies to new single-family homes, duplexes, and smaller townhome buildings. On February 27th, Council directed staff to engage local contractors and professionals on a proposed increase from step 3 to step 4 minimum performance levels for new homes. This change would allow the district to continue to demonstrate leadership beyond minimum provincial code requirements, ensure that new homes are highly energy efficient, and that these homes will need to use less energy for heating and cooling, and that these homes will, this ensures that we are continuing to move towards net zero energy homes well ahead of the provincial timeline. The proposed bylaw also includes housekeeping changes to align the district's low carbon option with the province's recently introduced greenhouse gas emission standards now included in the BC Building Code. The district coordinated with the City of North Vancouver and the District of West Vancouver to carry out engagement activities for the proposed increase to step 4 minimum performance. This included a coordinated consultation letter, a virtual workshop, and a follow-up survey. 75 contractors and professionals attended the workshop in April, hosted by the 3 North Shore municipalities. The majority of respondents indicated high levels of readiness to achieve step 4 and prior experience working on projects at step 4 or step 5 levels. Additional feedback included concerns over potential cost implications, moving ahead of provincial minimum code timelines, and interest in additional training. The workshop included a presentation from BCIT's Zero Emission Building Center to outline common solutions for achieving step 4 and discounted training programs that are available. The proposed bylaw aims to harmonize requirements with the City of North Vancouver and the District of West Vancouver to maintain consistency across the North Shore. At the time of presenting, staff from the other 2 North Shore municipalities are introducing similar bylaw amendments to their respective councils' consideration. The increase from step 3 to step 4 is recommended to demonstrate leadership beyond minimum code requirements, to maintain consistency for builders, and to prepare industry for future provincial building code updates anticipated in the coming years. These proposed changes ensure that a minimum amount of energy is used to heat and cool new homes. Staff will continue to meet regularly with counterparts on the North Shore to coordinate implementation and to review potential updates enabled by the provincial building code, and intend to report back to council in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to be moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Murray. Just my own comments on the matter. I do recognize that this is, in the short term at least, going to have the effect of adding to the cost of construction and new home prices. However, in the long run, the environmental benefits are going to be significant for our community as we work through our housing stock. What we're talking about here is probably we'll have about 100 re-and-re's where we replace a new build or create a new single family house in a year. Maybe that's even a bit high. Mr. Milburn, I don't know if you have a better number than that.
Your worship typically ranges from 160 to 300 tear downs and rebuilds if you consider major renovations as well.
Okay. Oh, okay. If you include renovations. Okay. And so what we're talking about in a population of about 36,000 addresses is 0.5% to 1% per year replacement at this higher standard. It's not going to be fast enough. It's not going to be significant enough to make a huge difference, but it is generally the right direction for us to go. I believe that we agreed to this kind of, I know step is in the name, but taking these measured steps as we progress towards net neutral on new builds in the community. And so I'm happy to support this going to the next level and look forward to seeing it implemented. Councillor Murray, your comments as a seconder?
Just following up on your comments of the cost that applying to construction, because construction's going through the roof. You know, are there other ways to achieve what we're trying to get to besides, you know, the next level up on the step code? Are there, you know, more, I mean, are there other options for us that, you know, and our builders automatically, you know, looking at better construction, more environmental construction as opposed to being forced into it by the step code? You know, is it just happening without us having the step code?
Through your worship to Councillor Murray, I think I could provide a bit of insight. We did, in our consultation, we did get feedback from a number of builders who felt that it was really quite achievable. In fact, we looked through our permit data and we found that there are many existing builds that are already achieving step 4. And really for us, it's setting that foundation in terms of ensuring that minimal energy is going to be used as we go on the path towards where we need to get to in terms of net zero new housing.
When we talk about like the previous application, when I talked about the surface area of that lot and what's happening on some of these, you know, bigger houses that are being built, the amount of concrete that's being used, the amount of surface area that's being covered by hard surfaces, you know, where does that fall in, or does it with the step code? Is there, you know, we're talking about, you know, improving our environment, but, you know, pouring concrete everywhere and massive retaining walls and swimming pools, et cetera. That's obviously impacting. And as Mayor Little points out, it's such a small percentage that we're actually impacting by these regulations. Are we actually going forward? Or are we regressing back because of, you know, at one time it was all yard and a little tiny bungalow. You know, you saved up to put a second story on, and now it's like a frickin' hotel. Sorry, I shouldn't have said frickin'. I'm getting tired. I want to go home. I know you guys all do too.
Fuddle-duddle, I believe.
Sorry about that.
I don't know if you have further response. Further response, Ms. Jackson?
Is that a rhetorical question?
Through your worship to Councillor Murray, I'm not sure what the question is.
I think the question was that as the average size of houses is going up, these changes are not actually overcoming that difference.
No.
So maybe rhetorical, but fair to be said.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Murray, I think that is a separate, likely a separate issue that's not dealt with through the step code. However, the report does make mention of some of the work that we have been doing on embodied emissions generally, particularly with some of the larger buildings where we're able to actually have some influence there.
Mr. Stewart, I think we have to have you know, I hate to say another workshop, but we do have to have a discussion. We need to understand from those in the private sector as well. We need to have a discussion with our staff, with, you know, local engineers, talk about this kind of thing, really understand what we're doing. We get a lot, we've had, I don't know, 20 letters, vote in favor of this, vote in favor of this, vote in favor of this. And, I just thought it was a no-brainer. We're going to vote in favor of it. I don't need 20 letters to tell me to do it. But, what are we actually doing? And with all of, we're wanting to look at our zoning bylaw again. I really think that's the crux of it. I dare I ask where we are with that, because it's going to take a long time to do it. But we really need to advance that zoning bylaw forward so we can deal with some of this stuff, because I just think, it's 2 steps forward and 200 back. I don't know if these kinds of moves and these votes are actually achieving what people think is going to happen, because it is such a small impact. And we could have such larger impacts by, looking at things and changing things and making things different as we move forward as far as construction and what our zoning bylaw allows. Thank you.
Your comments, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to get a little more detail. If I can just go through your report a bit. You mentioned that the majority of the respondents are ready to make the move. And I think earlier slide mentioned that I think you consulted like 75. Do you have that percentage of majority? Are we talking about 50%? Or are we talking about 90% already?
So one of the survey, through your worship, thank you for the question, to Councillor Mark. One of the questions through the survey to contractors and professionals, was to rank their level of readiness on a scale of 1 to 5. The majority were ranking themselves at either 4 or 5. I don't have the information right in front of me, but it was more than 50%, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I can.
Okay, but it'd be nice if it was higher than this 50.
Mm.
But okay. In terms of your consultation, was BC Housing involved? This is a 2-part question.
In terms of the stakeholder workshop, it was focused on kind of the technical folks, so designers, energy advisors, engineers, builders, architects. So BC Housing would not be.
Yeah, and through your worship to Councillor Ma, I'm just going to jump in and say that the consultation was really focused on Part 9 buildings, which are typically your single family homes, your duplexes, and BC Housing typically are the Part 3, the larger, more complex buildings. And we do work quite actively with BC Housing with respect to policy around those buildings. For example, the climate ready rezoning bylaw, that's rezoning policy that's referenced in the report. We do work quite closely. They've got some really great folks there over at BC Housing on the energy front.
Yeah, I'm sure you know that BC Housing does do those multifamily units, but they do a substantial number of group homes throughout the province. The reason I ask that is trying to get a sense that, it's great that we're aligning with the North Shore. So we're not really at a disadvantage when it comes to building. But if this was more of a provincial wide thing that BC Housing was supporting, it would be kind of like across the board, and it wouldn't be any one particular area that was singled out as being more challenging to develop because the requirements were higher.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Ma, I think that's a great point. And if we can just add, one of the great things about the leadership shown on the North Shore with regard to being essentially 5 years ahead of the province going to the step 3, which they now are at, which we've been at for the past 5 years, is that there's been an ability for us to help advance the industry generally. And had it not been for some leadership from organizations and jurisdictions like the North Shore, it's unlikely that the province would have been able to actually implement step 3 province-wide as it has done. So I think that the role that the district and other municipalities have played has been significant in terms of moving industry forward. And there should be some recognition as well that goes to our local building industry. There's folks there who've shown a lot of innovation, even when it comes to reducing embodied carbon through prefabrication and all kinds of innovations that they've pioneered. And really, it's been, I think, an economic driver as well for them here on the North Shore.
One of the policies that's before council right now is, the soft densification, secondary suites, trying to expand the stock of rental units through secondary suites. So if someone's converting their basement into a secondary suite now, they would be required to do this step 4, or would they not?
Thank you, through your worship. This proposal is for new construction.
Oh, okay. I
homes.
thought it was also for rental. Okay,
For new construction. Yeah.
new construction only. Okay, maybe just a follow-up question to that. On average, is there some sort of estimate on the premium, or if there's a premium to costs for being on step 4?
Thank you, through your worship. So research published by the province of BC is estimating the cost increase from step 3 to step 4 for Part 9 homes, these homes that we're focusing on, is approximately 0.5% cost increase.
But what does that translate into dollars?
Into dollars, might have to do some quick math, just based on kind of the average.
It's 0.5% of the construction cost, not including the land cost. So just typical construction cost for a single family home, just 0.5%.
Okay, 30 grand, maybe 35 grand. Okay. I'm generally supportive. I think we need to do something that addresses the environmental challenges, but I just wanted to put you on the spot and ask you some questions. So I'm good. Thank you.
Just before I go to Councillor Forbes, I just want to clarify something I've said there. So when you say new construction, we're not also including stuff where the renovation is in excess of the value of the existing structure. It is only entirely new construction.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so these proposed amendments just focus on new construction for Part 9 buildings, so single family homes, duplexes, townhomes.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Forbes.
A couple of my points have, thank you, Your Worship. A couple of my points have already been made, and one of them was the cost between the going from step 3 to step 4. The other one was sort of the same as Councillor Murray saying that it would be kind of nice to know, if we're affecting such a small percentage, if there is something else we can do to do more, because it's not only the cost of materials, but it's even defined the labor right now. So I don't know if staff had anything back from developers or builders about the shortage of labor and how difficult that is, that you can make a comment on.
That's right.
Yeah, through your worship, to Councillor Forbes, I think that is a concern for the North Shore across the board in all industries, whether it's building, whether it's others. There is just a general lack of available labor, and it does drive up costs for all of our local businesses, including builders. And it is unfortunate.
Along with driving up the cost, then what we do is we work against ourselves when we're trying to find more affordable housing. So new is never affordable. The older is more affordable. I understand that, but you drive up the costs, that drives up the price of that particular new home. That may drive up that local area's costs. So on the one hand, we're doing something we should do and going down the right road. On the other hand, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot sometimes, but I'm in favor of the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Back.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. I want to remind everyone that it was 4 years ago, almost to the day, that the previous council declared the climate emergency and ecological emergency. And this obviously is an area where we've shown some real leadership. And so I think we absolutely need to support it. I like the way that it's aligned across the North Shore. I really appreciate that we're creating a standard that works for the 3 municipalities and anyone who's wanting to do a new build here. I was just going to ask you, in terms of new construction, what percentage roughly of new construction, new builds are already meeting step 5 versus step 3 with a low carbon system?
Yeah, so thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Back. So the information that we're aware of, just looking at permit data, most of the applications coming in are coming in at step 3.
Okay.
So we have this incentivized approach where it's step 5 or step 3 currently with a low carbon energy system. So that the incentivized approach seems to be working to kind of enable that low carbon energy system coming forward. A smaller fraction are coming in at step 5. I'd say maybe about 10% of applications. So we anticipate that with the move up to step 4, we'll see a similar level of majority of applications coming in at step 4 with the low carbon system.
Okay. So I guess giving the option really does kind of help move the builders along to try and, adapt and change the way they build new buildings, new homes. But yeah, I definitely think this is the direction we need to be going. And the fact that we are leading in this area, I think is something that we can be proud of here at the district. So happy to support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. Yes, I also support the motion. Climate change is obviously already impacting our lives, and I'm remembering that it was just 2 years ago that 600 people died in BC because of the heat dome. And so my feeling is that's why action is needed and why I support the move to step code 4. As staff have pointed out, the builders we engaged with have said many are already building to step 4. And as you've pointed out, 10% are building to step 5. I expect that will increase regardless of whether we have step 4 in place or not. I'm just wondering about the issue that we've heard in some of the speakers tonight, Claudia Cornwall for one, about the natural gas hookups in new builds and all the concerns around that. Where are we at with that?
Mr. Wright.
So in terms of, thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Pope. So in terms of natural gas hookups, so the proposed bylaw amendments this evening wouldn't limit natural gas exclusively. So there's still, it would encourage the use of air source heat pumps as kind of the primary energy system, but it would still potentially allow accessory gas usage if proposed by builders.
Is the natural gas, I guess, how much of a concern is it? Because it's my understanding, and I certainly am not an expert in this area, but it's my understanding that really, if we're going to meet our targets, we need to start ensuring that buildings are built without the natural gas. So is that something that the district could be working towards, or does that fall under the heading of step 5?
Thank you, through worship, to Councillor Pope. Yeah, so back in 2021, when we brought in that 2-tiered approach, the step 5 or step 3 with the low carbon system, that was to encourage most applications to kind of limit natural gas through that greenhouse gas intensity limit. And that seems to be working. So about 80 to 90% of the applications are primarily mostly electric systems. So it seems to be, we're expecting kind of a similar turnout with this proposed update.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, see Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't have too much to add. Much of what I could otherwise have said has been already spoken at council. I do respect the fact that Councillor Back has brought up the climate emergency, and I do view this as a step in the right direction and as showing some, putting some sincerity behind our declaration of climate emergency. So I'm happy to support and thank you for all the work that has been done.
All right, thank you very much. Council, I see no further speakers, so I'm prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at, despite what that clock says, we are at just after 9 o'clock. What I'd recommend is that we have a bit of a stand washroom bio break if people need to. I think that would be appropriate because I think we're probably going to go the distance on with the remaining work. So I'd recommend that we have a 3 or 4 minute break. And so we're going to return at about 10 after 9. And so we'll have a recess.
Yeah,
All right, council, I think it's time to come back from recess. Virtual, you can do that at home. Just saved you tens of thousands of dollars right there. All right. We're resuming on to item 8.6. This is bylaws 8623, 8622, 8624, 8625, OCP amendment rezoning, housing agreement and development cost charges waiver bylaws for the 6-story rental building at 1541 to 1557 Bond Street. This is, the clerk always likes when I point out that when you have an OCP amendment, it actually has a different count, which is why we consider it as a separate motion or portion of the motion. It requires 4 members of council regardless of how many are present, versus the other items, it's just a simple majority of council. It's the same number in this case, but we like to point it out because it's a different process. Yes. At this point, I'm going to go to staff for their comments, but this item is being returned from a public hearing and being considered for second, third reading. And are there any additional comments from staff?
Thank you, Your Worship. No additional comments given this a returning item. Staff are available to answer questions with respect to item 8.7, which is directly linked to this item. It's a road closure bylaw. And so these items are connected in terms of their issues. And we're happy to respond to questions if asked, although this is a post-hearing matter, so we will be confining our comments to those matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so just to clarify that, so item 8.7 on tonight's agenda is absolutely conditional upon 8.6. And so if 8.6 doesn't pass, then 8.7 would be removed from the agenda at that point. So we can actually discuss both portions of it in your comments at second and third reading. They're two tied together. Okay, council looking for a motion. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hanson. Is there a seconder for the staff recommendation? I'll second the staff recommendation. Councillor Hanson, your comments?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to support the rezoning bylaw, which permits the construction of 65 rental units, including 6 non-market rental units on this site. In both the 2018 and 2022 local government elections, I campaigned on the promise that I would support rezonings for rental housing. In this instance, the proposal is to convert 4 single-family homes and a 6-story into a 6-story, 65-unit rental building. I note that the speakers in the public input were all in support of this rezoning. The building will now on a couple of reservations. The building contains 28 parking spaces or 0.43 per unit. Given the proximity to transit and traffic issues in the vicinity, I would encourage us in the future to consider no parking. From my point of view, in this location, that would make sense and it would make the overall proposal more affordable. I understand that parking spaces can be as expensive. I've heard the quote is $100,000 a stall. Perhaps in the future, we can consider having a 0 parking, and then that would make it economic, perhaps, for us to have a higher percentage of non-market rental. However, those are just some ideas for the future. From my perspective, I'm very pleased that this proposal has come forward in this form. I congratulate everyone involved. And I look forward to 65 rental homes coming to North Vancouver District. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I'm also in support. And, you know, I know that people are going to be concerned about how affordable is affordable. But I have to say that without a significant government subsidy, this is actually a very high level of affordable units to be in a development like this. to a significant decrease in the costs. So I'm appreciative of that. I think this is a neighborhood in flux with obviously a tremendous amount going on. And I think that this has been long awaited for. The house that was on there definitely needed to be removed, needs to be removed. It's had all kinds of issues in the time waiting until development. I wish we had a better plan for properly managing and occupying those units in the interim years while development is waiting. But that one got into a pretty bad state, and which I know it's hard for the developer to manage that in that case as well. But I'm glad we're potentially moving this forward. I will be supportive of the staff recommendation. Is there any other council members wishing to make comment? Councillor Murray?
Well, I'll support this, even though I think the rental houses in this area that were owned by the applicant were not looked after well. And I think partly that is by desire. So the rest of the neighborhood can get upset about it and we go to development. I can't help but draw a connection between what the province is asking us to do in regards to not building enough housing in our community. When I look at Lower Lynn Creek apartments, starting at $4,000 a month for a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom. I think the 4 bedrooms are around $6,000. We've got 6 units out of 65 that will be, you know, up to $1,500, I think, somewhere in there. 6 units. 6 units we get out at 65 for, and you'll pay $1,150 or $1,300. That's the discount that you're going to get on a rental unit. How long under that model is it going to take us to be able to build enough housing to support people that work here in the cafes, the laundromats, the schools, the grocery stores? You know, it's a ridiculous discussion that we're having. And yet we think by, you know, building 65 super expensive market rentals and getting 6 affordable, somehow we're going to address this issue in our community. I was adding up, you know, the number of families that we've displaced in the last 10 years, you know, and we've just really like not even broken even really in the amount of displacements, including people that will be displaced out of this development, people that were displaced at Murray Place up the road for more development, displacements in Lynn Valley, you know, dozens of families up there to make way for 600 market rental, you know, condos and townhouses. We're doing this backwards, you know. What we should be doing and what our OCP said we should do was protect that rental, that vulnerable housing at all costs, and make sure that those people that are so important in this community remain. And we've done the opposite over the last 10 years, 10, 12 years. And that's disappointing mark on this council's, not this council, but the previous councils made those decisions. And that's very unfortunate. So, you know, I hope the provincial government, you know, really understands what's going on here, that 6 units out of 65 that, you know, are less than $1,500 is just not going to do it. And I think there needs to be, as you've pointed out many times, Mayor Little, a significant increase in funding from senior levels of government. They got out of this system, and it's part of the reason that we're in you know, part of the reason that we're in this bucket of, well, I won't say it. I've already said a potty mouth word tonight, but you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, rental is good, but expensive rental is not getting us anywhere.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor. Anyone else wishing? Councillor Pope, your comments?
I agree with Councillor Murray in that I support this, but I'm so extremely disappointed that we're only ending up with 6 affordable housing units in it. And I think based on what we've seen in other neighborhoods, that these rentals, the other rentals will be rented out at sky high rates that only people who are earning significant amounts of money can afford to live in. And of course, the housing is needed for them as well. But my focus is on affordable housing. So I am disappointed in that. But I'm ready to move forward and work on other projects and developments in the district and demand more affordable housing in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Not necessarily anything new to add, but I share the sentiment of my council colleagues. I will support this, but because overall it's a positive move, adding 65 rental units. But I too would have liked more than 6 non-market units. But at this point, we need to move forward as best we can. And it's the right form for this community, 6 stories, and the 10-year rental is what we need in a district. So the market will say if their price is too high or not. So thank you.
I would like to just add a follow-up comment on it. The letdown of land for park and for public uses in and around the site is not insignificant. This is a significant contribution back to the municipality to support the neighborhood. I think that the developer has dug deep. They've done everything they can to make this project go ahead, and there's probably not a lot of wiggle room left in it. The contribution back to the public is extremely significant. I did just want to mention that because I was starting to get the sense that people were disappointed with the project. You hold this ratio up to any other project in the District of North Vancouver without public subsidy, and I think you're going to come to the conclusion that there is a significant public benefit from this project, even though I know we all have our eyes set on many other very difficult to achieve targets in our community. So I did just want to say that I hopefully change the tone a little bit on that. Councillor Miri.
I have to rebut.
That's fine.
Where's my mic? And this is not about the developer. I have my differences with developers, but that's my own, issue. I think the OCP failed. I think the OCP failed this municipality. I really do. The Lower Lynn was one of the most affordable neighborhoods in the entire North Shore, the last affordable neighbor on the North Shore. It's an industrial neighborhood, commercial jobs. We rezoned land with good paying jobs like our waterfront, good paying jobs, and we put up a lot of fancy condos. And we rezoned industrial land when the OCP said protect industrial land. We rezoned, old affordable rental housing when the OCP said protect old affordable rental housing. We didn't do that. We didn't even listen to our OCP. We picked parts that we want to support, and we kill parts that we don't. And I fear for the commercial part of this community. I really do. I feel like the land prices are going to rise so much that they'll just want to sell, and there'll be a council one day that'll say, yeah, no problem, we'll let you sell. And then you won't have any commercial down there, and you won't have those businesses that support the waterfront and local industry. And that's what this municipality was built on, was local industry. And we haven't done enough to protect it. We're losing jobs. We don't have people to work in the ones that we've got. We don't have affordable housing anymore. We're picking it off half a dozen units at a time. And so I think we failed in regards to what the OCP's vision was. This neck of the woods should have been kept a very industrial, live, work, rustic part of our community. We don't need to be the same everywhere. We've got the British properties on Capilano Road and in Edgemont. Deep Cove and Seymour is a bit of both. This area should have been kept more of an industrial nature, and I think we made mistakes.
I see. Love it. I see no further speakers on the matter. So I'm prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And just want to be clear, that both 8, in your view, that was 8.6 and 8.7. That would be my
That's correct, Your Worship. That was my understanding. That's what we explained at the beginning, that it would
tied
be
together.
both. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item up for discussion is item 8.8. This is bylaw 8626 rezoning for hydrogen liquefaction facility at 100 Forester Street. And this item is also returning from a public hearing for second, third, and it was noted by someone earlier, and adoption. And the reason why we normally have a separation between second and third and adoption is we're normally in housing and there's normally technical agreements that have to take place. In this case, all of those technical agreements have already been addressed, and so that we are actually permitted to go directly to adoption. So this item is up for 3 readings tonight, and I'll look to the council for a motion. Staff recommendations moved by Councillor Hansen, seconded by Councillor Back. Councillor Hansen, your comments?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will be supporting this bylaw amendment to permit the construction and operation of a hydrogen facility in 100 Forester. The construction of such a facility on this site has many benefits that have been well articulated. It facilitates a cleaner energy alternative, it creates employment, it facilitates economic activity in the district, adding to our industrial tax base. I do want to address on all of that, there was consensus around all that. So the one issue at the public hearing that was raised was safety. Can this facility located in this built-up area, can we be confident that it's safe? And is it a responsible decision to place a facility of this type in a location of this nature? And I take obviously that very seriously, because although the chances of a mishap, as stated, are small, the consequences of an accident and the types of things that can go wrong, potentially, hypothetically, in a hydrogen facility of this type are very serious. In that regard, I took the initiative of, I took the step of actually carefully studying the report of Doug McCutcheon, who is a person, an engineer hired to assess this risk. His report, as you can see, 102 pages. It's extremely extensive, but much of it is technical. Some of it, frankly, was hard for me to grasp. But I accept that the risk assessment is both an art and a science, and that Mr. McCutcheon clearly analyzed the facts carefully and concluded that the risks presented were within a reasonable and acceptable standard. And I guess the question that I would pose is, who am I to substitute my views on this issue for those of a highly qualified expert? And for the type of detailed study that was put into this report. Therefore, while I take the risk of harms from this facility seriously, I believe that these risks are sufficiently remote to be justified. And a figure that appears in the report is a 1 in 1 million chance annually of an accident causing death, which, when put into context of other types of human activities and human activities, is very, very modest, and a chance that is reasonable when put into the context of the economic and societal benefits to be achieved. So for that reason, weighing all the factors, I believe the proposed land use is reasonable, and I congratulate everyone involved in the project and thank for their hard work in bringing it to this stage.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansen. Councillor Back, seconder.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yes, I am pleased to second this motion and support it. I spent a lot of time learning about how this is going to work, including meeting with the applicant initially and listening carefully throughout the public hearing. So I'm glad that my council colleague, Councillor Hansen, addressed the safety issue. That was the main concern that we heard. But I am quite comfortable with the level of risk as noted in Mr. McCutcheon's risk assessment. I think the whole concept of taking what is now a waste byproduct that's currently just being released into the atmosphere and being able to capture that and be part of the transition away from, into more electric vehicles, and electrification is a good thing. Hydrogen plays an important role, I think, as I've learned more about, again, through the process here. So one of my concerns was the increase in truck traffic to and from the site, but I'm reassured that it's not a significant increase in terms of getting the product off the site. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. We have a long history with chemical plants on the waterfront in the Maplewood area specifically. And there's been lots of discussion over the years. We've learned a lot about risk tolerance. And we have a lot of risk in the district. I sit at the base of an escarpment at the mouth of the Seymour River, at the foot of a dam, in an area of liquefaction, a few blocks away from all of those chemical plants. I'm right in the precipice of potential disaster. And yet people come into our community all the time. They recreate, they move into it, they move out of it, they live, they work. And I think over the years, given that the municipality was built on industry and waterfront industry, there's been an exceptionally good track record in regards to safety. And we learned that when Hooker Chemicals, CanXis, CanOxy, whatever we call them now. Oh, Chemtrade, they keep changing their names. Came forward and did improvements down at their plant years ago based on that subdivision application. And it was sort of fitting that the other day I got an email from a resident who's got a business just taken on a 10-year lease in the neighborhood, wrote me to ask about safety and concerns of the area. Smelt some chlorine the other day. I reached out to, and I know we've got our assistant fire chief, our deputy fire chief Danks on the line, but wrote me the other day. So I sent it to Nasimo North Shore Emergency Management, and Director Dickin responded. And she said, I can assure you that industry partners responsible for these chemical plants have comprehensive monitoring systems in place. These systems are designed to detect any potential leaks or releases of the products they produce, ensuring the safety of both their workers and the surrounding community. Based on our experience working with these industry partners, we have confidence in their commitment to maintaining high safety standards and know that they follow strict regulations. And if they detect a leak, their procedure is to notify the surrounding community immediately without hesitation. They have sirens in place to alert people in the vicinity of any leaks. And additionally, they use the Alertable app to notify of any incidents that may occur. She went on to say that, products like sodium chlorate are hazardous chemicals. However, we at North Shore Emergency Management and the District of North Vancouver.
Sir, I apologize. I'm going to interrupt. So the hearing closed and then.
Oh, yeah, new information.
So what
I'm just talking about the alertable system.
I get that the what you're talking about is general risk information. I'd really prefer if you stuck to the information.
But we did talk about risk and the systems.
Yes, but I'd much prefer we stick with stuff that was presented up to the close of the public hearing.
Well, it was safety information.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'm just trying to put forward that those things have always been the concern of the local community. As Councillor Hanson pointed out, it's a concern of his. I know it's a concern of this entire council, or emergency response, et cetera. And it was brought up at the hearing. So I don't think I was reading anything that was not in relationship to things that were brought up. But I'll heed your advice, Mayor Little. But I think the community needs to understand that they all work together, and that we are in a good place as far as the systems that have been attained. So I have no concerns going forward with this rezoning and this addition, and I'll support the application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a feeling I'm going to be the odd person out in the vote tonight. And again, I was present when Doug Hutchinson gave the review about the chemical plant and the dangers of that and how far up the slope a chemical disaster would go. And then I read this report, and then I've also talked to somebody that is a scientist in the field and told me that when somebody is consulting on a particular project, they don't necessarily, which I was shocked at, they don't necessarily look at the surrounding areas, what the neighbors are. They might just concentrate on that project and relate their report to that project. It's not a question of when it will happen. It's a question of how dangerous is it when it does happen. And I did ask Mr. Hutchinson, what was the impact on the employees that would be right there? And he said 200 pounds of pressure per square inch on the body. So you'd
To be
basically,
clear, that's Mr. McCutcheon.
McCutcheon,
There you
sorry. So that would, I mean, basically you're dead. So I can't in good conscience feel okay with that. It may be a 1 in a million, but maybe it's 1 in the first 10 of the million. So in good conscience, I'm going to vote no for this.
Thank you. Councillor Mo.
Thank you. I will support this motion in reaching this conclusion. I took into account the feedback during the public hearing and still believe that this amendment should be supported for the following reasons. Similar to Councillor Hanson, I believe the safety issues have been assessed and deemed acceptable by a professional consultant. You know, I'm not qualified to assess this level of risk. But I do believe that the intensification of the waterfront, especially in industrial land, is the goal of this council. And I also believe this project is good for economic development. I'm also not qualified to judge the viability of hydrogen as an alternate fuel, but I wish it success because it will help reduce greenhouse gases and help address the environmental issues. So good luck.
Okay, my own comments on it. I think that I'm going to be supportive of the staff recommendation. I heard the comments from Mr. McCutcheon during the process, and I agree that what the council's really considering here is whether or not we think that the hazards are mitigated sufficiently to allow this kind of exemption to occur. That's what the bylaw was in place for, so that council would have an opportunity of sober second thought to decide what risk we would be willing to accept. I'd now like to use the next 3.5 minutes followed by 2 minutes to talk about my problems with hydrogen as a fuel cell. No, that's going to be for a coffee with Mr. Armstrong at some point in the future to hopefully answer my concerns. During the public hearing, I asked the question about, well, actually, when we met with the applicant, I asked the question about the neighbor being a thirsty customer when I was talking about electricity. And the comment at the time was, that this will be a thirsty customer. And so in the public hearing, I asked the question about how much energy does it take to produce a kilogram of liquefied, cryogenically liquefied hydrogen. And the answer back was about 10 kilowatt hours per kilogram, roughly translated about 40 megajoules per kilogram. And so to produce 5 million kilograms of liquefied hydrogen, it takes you about 200 million joules of electricity to be able to produce that. And we could probably charge a lot more than the 30,000 cars with 200 million megajoules of information, of electricity. And so it is a thirsty customer indeed. And I would argue that probably one of the reasons why our jurisdiction is considering this is because we already have low-cost hydrogen available because the hydrogen's already been separated. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But then the other piece of it is we have effectively subsidized electricity in the province of BC. Our electricity bill is not at the market rate. It is at a capped rate to make sure that it is affordable for our homeowners. And unfortunately, the byproduct is it makes this a very competitive environment for us. Now, I would love to see Maplewood be a hub of high-tech jobs and a real district where we get high-paying jobs for the community and such. And I'm supportive of that. I support the bylaw for consideration today. But I have this great fear that we are not producing enough electricity in the province of BC. That we are not producing enough infrastructure for transmission of electricity in the province of BC. And so my concern in general, beyond the scope of the discussion emanating from the hearing, is that this will lead us to brownouts sooner. And so I have to figure out what the benefit is for us in the long run for us being the host of hydrogen fuel cell production. And I don't have an answer for that. It's not up for consideration in today's discussion, and I look forward to it. The offer is always open to Mr. Armstrong to get together for coffee, and he can convince me otherwise. But I'm not convinced of the environmental benefits necessarily from this. I get that it is a source of dense electricity that can help you with heavy loads and deal with shipping as well. But our electricity needs are much closer to home, I'm afraid. But I'm supportive of this. I think they've adequately satisfied my need that the risk is managed on the facility, and that's the question we're being asked today. So I'll be supportive. Any other discussion from council or rants? No, just discussion. I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries with Councillor Forbes opposed. Thank you very much, council. And an offer of coffee at some point there. Yeah. Okay, the next item up for discussion tonight is social housing initiatives for Lynn Valley Firehall. The author of the motion is Councillor Pope. So Councillor Pope, if you'd like to make your opening comments. You're welcome to. I don't know, if you're on the Zoom, you probably don't have to. Oh, that's okay. That's fine.
It's right there.
Go for it. Nope, just if it's on the screen already.
I was told that I had to go here.
That's okay.
So I could have done it from my desk?
That's okay. We'll go over that another time.
Okay, well, this shouldn't take long. I know we all want to go home. So let's start with my recommendation that council direct staff to report back on options to build a new fire hall where the current Lynn Valley Fire Hall exists and includes social affordable housing on the same site on top of the fire hall.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Okay. This came about, well, here, as you can see in the next slide, which hasn't come up for you. Is it a delayed?
No, we're just, this was actually started, it's being run by Emily in the back.
Oh.
So if you just like to say next slide, please, Emily will advance.
So I can't advance it from here?
Sorry, it was one or the other system, and we thought we were going with that system.
Okay.
And you could have stayed where you're sitting.
Right, okay, whatever. So here's the current Lynn Valley Fire Hall site, which we've been told is aging and will outlive its useful life within 10 years. And recently, on the right-hand side, Councillor Jordan Back and I went on a tour of the Vancouver Fire Hall number 5, which is in South Vancouver, Champlain Heights. And this is one half of it called the YWCA Pacific Spirit Terrace, as you heard from the YWCA Vice President Lisa Rupert earlier tonight, who gave her presentation on it. But I was so impressed by it that I thought, hey, you know, why don't we try this in North Van? As we've heard, North Van is very much in need of affordable housing. And if we could have the next slide, please. And we know that affordable housing is causing many problems. Seniors, families, and young people forced to move out of the district we have labor shortages, and we have traffic congestion caused by workers who can't afford to live here. The District of North Van has identified affordable housing as a priority in the official community plan, the OCP action plan, the affordable housing and rentals strategy, and the housing needs report. Additionally, as we know recently, new BC legislation requires the district to meet housing targets. Next slide, please. So again, I just wanted to show you, because I was so inspired by this tour that we had of how it looks. So this is 4 stories of affordable housing above the 2 stories of the fire hall. And as she'd mentioned earlier, totally separate entrances. So the one side really never communicates with the other side. And the people who live in the building apparently never hear the fire hall or even know that it's there. And they love living there. Next slide, please. Inside, we got a tour of the incredible family lounge, which also has a community kitchen and the rooftop patio with a veggie garden and a play area for the kids. 31 low-cost rentals for women and children. Some of the other features of Pacific Spirit Terrace are, they obviously leveraged needed replacement of the old Vancouver Fire Hall number 5. It provides affordable housing for vulnerable and low-income mothers and children. 31 rental units for at least 60 low-income women and children. And they do have a Vancouver residents-only policy, like a locals first policy. 2 and 3 bedroom units, also on-site counseling support. And I mentioned some of the other features. And the rents are between $520 and $1,164. So truly affordable. She ran very quickly earlier tonight through the funding model. The affordable housing side of it came in at 11.3 million. Let's not forget, this was in 2019 when it was finally built. The city of Vancouver kicked in 6.6 million for housing. The fire hall itself was in the budget already to be rebuilt at $11 million. And the city also granted property tax exemption. The Y fundraised 2.2 million and also got some funding through that fundraising effort through BC Housing, Pacific Spirit Foundation, Street to Home Foundation, and the Government of Canada's Reaching Home program. Next slide, please. So my question is, can the District of North Vancouver rise to the challenge to deliver a similar project at the Lynn Valley Fire Hall? I hope you'll support my recommendation.
Okay. Thank you very much. It has been seconded. Just before I go to the seconder, I want to just make one comment about process on this. So what Councillor Pope has presented here is what could be possible. It's something that's been done in another space. But I want to be very clear that this does not mean that we've identified YWCA as a partner necessarily on a project going forward at a site, and that if the council approves this direction, that there would still be an RFP, request for proposal process in order to be able to determine a suitable partner should the district decide to continue. I just wanted to point that out just because I thought people might have the impression that this is to do the YWCA project specifically. That would be still to be determined at a later date. Councillor Murray seconding?
Yeah.
Okay, and your comments?
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Pope, for bringing this forward. This site and this project has come up before in the past to the district, but the process that we go through to look at available sites is not generally this way, but I think it's going to prove very effective and hopefully we'll do more of it with other sites. I would encourage you to. I certainly will be bringing forward a site to consider possibly Habitat for Humanity because I've been talking about that for 15 years and it hasn't happened yet. So I'll do it your way and see how it works out. This is my route to the airport on Cres, right by Champlain. I've been going by it for years. It's a really great project, and I appreciate the input from the YWCA. You know, something that we can do that would fit in nicely to the Lynn Valley community and utilize our existing facilities. It works. It's been successful, and I don't see why it wouldn't work here. So I'm totally supportive, and I thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Back.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the motion for bringing this forward, Councillor Pope. I'm happy to support it as well. I too enjoyed the tour that we had at YWCA's Pacific Spirit Terrace. It's amazing to me how well that partnership works between the housing piece and the fire hall there. I think it has the potential to work really well here as well. And I think just the location of the Lynn Valley Firehall site and its proximity to the town center and you know, the walkable neighborhood, I think is well worth exploring. So happy to support it.
Thank you.
Okay. My own comments. I have to ask a question. We have our new Deputy Chief Mike Danks on the line with us here today. I don't know, Mr. Danks, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Have you heard from Vancouver Fire Department or other fire agencies that have used this type of housing, and how does it affect fire operations out of those facilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we haven't had the dialogue with Vancouver, but that's something that we could certainly explore. We are supportive of the idea and interested in being engaged on it if council moves in that direction.
Great, thank you very much. Just my own comments on it. I think that while this motion is to specifically look at a specific site, I actually agree with the conclusion on the first page, which is council should consider converting DNV sites into social housing where and when possible. I think that standalone facilities need to go through an extra level of scrutiny if that's the max that we're going to do. Otherwise, our general approach should be that it should be integrated with housing or other services in the community. And the reason why I say other services is because we also need to create office space for supportive and health spaces, like at Parkgate, where we have Vancouver Coastal Health staff integrated in the building. And so it may not always just be adding that extra capacity for housing. Sometimes it's adding that capacity for very necessary services in the community. But I think that we shouldn't be just simply looking at standalone facilities in the vast majority of cases anymore. And so I'm supportive of this. I also think, obviously, as a party to this, that we need to be looking strategically at how to use the Mountain Highway site and the old fire training site, which I know we've had some discussions about, and to make sure that we're maximizing the public benefit out of those spaces as well. But I'll be supportive of the motion. Thank you, Councillor Pope, for raising the matter. I see no further speakers at this time. Ready to call the question? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we've progressed through a very significant council agenda tonight, and it's still 11:15 on that one. We'll fix that. We'll have to find someone a lot.
It's an unauthorized gift. You have to give it to the clerk.
That's right. Oh, well done. Well done. Council, we don't always get an opportunity to do this, but there is an opportunity for reports. I'll check with CAO. Do you have any additional reports to give us tonight? Okay, and so just for the council, I wanted to I'm trying to, think of all of the wonderful things that have happened since the last time we had a regular meeting of council. I guess specifically, I'm going to highlight Canada Day. I know a number of us were able to be down at both shipyards and also the really cool celebration they put together in Pemberton Heights. I know Councillor Ma, you were a big part of heading that up, and there were a lot of volunteers in your community. What I was so impressed by was the number of kids that were there, and it looked like you guys created an amazing family-friendly event there. And so my hat's off to the organizers in that area. I think you guys did a great job. Yeah. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I wanted to comment on Canada Day as well. Thanks, Councillor Ma, for inviting me and all of us down to Pemberton Heights to check it all out. It was great fun. My kids really enjoyed the parade. And yeah, watching your barbecue operation there, you run a pretty tight ship. Things were running very, very smoothly like a well-oiled machine, even though it hasn't happened in a few years. So kudos to you and your neighbors and the whole Pemberton Heights community. And I also went down to the shipyards, another great event. It is so great to see the big community events back again. I think none of us will ever take them for granted again after the pandemic. And then this past weekend on Saturday, I was down in Deep Cove all afternoon helping out with the NENACR, an event that's been going on, an ultramarathon event that's been going on in Deep Cove, finishing in Deep Cove for over 30 years. They had about 260 participants and a number of volunteers keeping the event going, finishing right in Panorama Park where they had a beer garden with Bridge Brewing there. And Deep Cove Pizza, she was out there all day serving up the pizza to the athletes. So it was just a great event, great atmosphere in the Cove. And again, another nice event to see that has been able to return. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hanson, a report.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm pleased to report that on June 22nd and 23rd, a Thursday and a Friday, in my capacity as Chair of the North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Use, I attended an event co-sponsored by the BC Centre for Disease Control and the Community Action Initiative, which is a lobby group dedicated to the issue of opioids deaths. And as we're all aware, close to 7 British Columbians die every day due to a toxic drug supply. And North Vancouver District has its share of those deaths, mostly male, mostly youthful, mostly in their own homes, and mostly with known pre-use of opioids by family members. There was a number of presentations, lots of good ideas. Some of those I will be bringing back to our North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Use and in due course bringing forward. So I did want to report that event and that activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. And I want to thank Councillor Back and Mayor Mike Little for coming to my little neighborhood of Pemberton Heights. I'm glad you had fun. But is Deputy Chief Mike Danks still on the line?
He's there, but
okay.
Deputy Chief Danks.
Yeah, I'm
can
still
you
here.
hear-
Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Councillor Ma's pressing
not that I'm
through.
taking any issue with it, but I was up on the fire truck from the crew from hall number 5, making my greeting. Then
Yes.
I think it was Trevor said I had to quickly climb down. And I thought I said something wrong or something, but they got called out on a call the first time probably in 10 years. So thanks for organizing that, Deputy Chief. Thanks.
I'm glad that worked out. So you got up on the truck, is that right?
Oh, am I not supposed to? Yes. It's all good. I was wearing a safety harness, of course.
There you go. Oh, that's good.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear it worked out.
Okay. On yesterday, I had the privilege of representing Mayor Mike Little and the district at the 2023 Philippine Days at the city's shipyard. It was to help celebrate Philippine culture and their 125th anniversary of their independence. So it was a great turnout. I want to thank Alvin and the organizing committee for hosting us. It was a great event. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
I just wanted to report that there was, and I'm glad Councillor Back reported on a really successful knee knackers in the park. But the access to the park on the roads going into the cove were very challenging this weekend with multiple events. And I committed to residents in discussions about what happened on the weekend that I would report to council in our council meeting, and that's what I'm doing. There will be a discussion between staff and our rec coordinators in regards to programming in the future of that area, because there were multiple events that were staged, and traffic and access into the area were very challenging. I'm pleased that once you were in the park, it was a very successful time, but actually getting down there was somewhat challenging. Engineering works is working towards that comprehensive traffic management plan that we've requested, and work was already happening prior to that in regards to how we will evolve the traffic situation in Deep Cove. So we know people love to go down there and love to take part in events and get out and see the view and hike Quarry Rock, but the challenge is the sustainability of the area and a balance for visitors and residents. Thank you.
Great. I've just got a couple of more quick reports. I did want to say, I guess it's since the last time we had our regular meeting of council, that we have hired a new officer in charge for the RCMP here, and we will at a future council date bring them in for an installation. But Jason Lukash, who's been serving our community since last summer in an interim fashion, is now going to be the superintendent for the district and city of North Vancouver through our detachment. I wish to congratulate him, but I will invite him back to come and share his thoughts on policing in the community at a council meeting this fall, and we'll do an installation of sorts at that time. I had the pleasure of serving as a librarian. We do a lot of promotional work with the Lynn Valley Library for what's called the Summer Reading Club Medals. And this is where when kids make a commitment to read throughout the course of the summer, and it's a lot of reading, it's weekly, daily reading, and if they complete that reading assignment throughout the course of the summer, then we recognize them with a public ceremony in the fall. Actually, we're going to have 3 public ceremonies in the fall because there's so many kids that have signed up, which is fantastic. I can't take credit for how many kids signed up during my time as the honorary librarian. I only signed up 1, but I heard that some people had lineups of kids if you were just timed with when the elementary schools. I don't know, he's a scary, imposing guy, I guess, but in the end, we will have the highest number of participants that we've had before, but we'll get you the specific numbers. Also, since the last time we had a regular meeting of council, we had Lynn Valley Days and Lynn Valley Day Parade, and I just wanted to pass on my appreciation and congratulations to the organizers for those events. They had, yes? No, we had a workshop the week after that. Yeah. And
Maybe it was from last year.
it was Blue Ridge. That's correct. This was only a week before the Canada Day events, and it was on the 24th. And it was well attended, probably not record attendance, but it was well attended. We had people lining Lynn Valley Road for the parade as it made its way through town. I always love the library representation there. They take the book trolleys out and do a demonstration with the different book trolleys as they're going down Lynn Valley Road. But they did a great job, and it was well attended, and there was a huge event at the park as well, and the gala the night before. So just wanted to pass on my appreciation to all of the organizers who stepped up to create that really valued community event. One other quick report, I participate as a judge in what's called YPI, the Youth Philanthropy Initiative. This is where an organization that makes a donation available, and the kids at a high school have to all do identify different charities within the community that they can potentially support. They have to learn about them, go there, meet the people, find out about them, and in the end, they do a presentation, and the judges pick a winner, and the winner actually gets money, a significant donation from YPI. And so it's a great initiative, and I was at Argyle for that selection process last week. As the kids they had already graduated, or they'd already finished their school year, but they had to come back and do their YPI. So I try to get them out of there quickly. And the last thing I was going to mention is that I participated in a fairly high-level climate action panel recently. I had the former Minister of Environment and current Minister of Natural Resources. I had the Chief of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We had the current Provincial Minister of Environment, all showcasing what different governments are doing to address climate action in our community. I was able to be supported by Ms. Jackson over there and make sure that we told the story of the District of North Vancouver's commitment to climate action and how we're making that happen both through policies around housing, but also policies around transportation and our own operations. And so I think it was a very good story to tell, and it was well attended. You know what the big thing that I'm very glad to hear, both the federal and the provincial representatives talked about generation and transmission. The rant that I go on a near daily basis, and they are recognizing that you cannot achieve your electrification targets without investment in generation and transmission capacity. You just will not be able to achieve it. And so it's very good to hear them say that in a public meeting. So anyway, that's my last report. I don't see any further reports. We've completed the business. I accept the adjournment from Councillor Murray. Once again, thank you very much to staff for preparing the reports for consideration today. Thank you for the members of the public for adding their comments and participating. And thank you to members of the council for your deliberations tonight. Everybody have a fantastic evening. Good night.